Candy, it's great to have you back for doing it. It's wonderful to have you back on the training and doing it again. Just goes to show, guys, that you can always continue to learn. And if you need a little bit more time, and also Michelle as well, 6 points, handling objections and pricing, wonderful, that's great. Highly structured and strategic calendar, that's good. RLA calendar, 6 points, that's good. Brainwashed Casey, that's good. And wide net, finding the market value, good. How to explain the auction process to interested buyers, okay, good. We'll do a little bit more of that today. Auction is the only option with relisting, that's good. It's not the only option, but certainly is the most prevalent. Trying to make sure my drink bottle isn't in the shop. Okay. All right, wonderful, guys. We'll appreciate that. I want to just do a little bit of a recap as well this morning, and I want to just make sure that we just go back over this individual part of the process, because where we're at in the presentation side of things, or where we're at in the accreditation side of things is we're at communication with seller. And I actually said to Callista that she could start this morning off, but then I rethought it. I think I just want to continue down the momentum that we've got at the moment all the way through to auction day, and then I'll get her to come back and go over the detailed orientated stuff of getting the property live to market. So what do you need on the paperwork, what type of disclosures, reports, how my auction works, and all that type of stuff. She'll take over once we've gotten all the way down to auction day. Keeping in mind as well, guys, today we're going to try and stick to those breaks again. I'm likely to have you out of here early. We did make really good progress here today, but just play that by ear. I'm probably aiming for somewhere in the lines of probably 2:30 to get you guys out of here. Might be up until 3 o'clock. I'm just not 100% sure. It just depends. However, either way, guys, 11:30 to 11:45 we'll do our first break, okay? And we'll push for lunch, probably be about 12:30, probably about 1 o'clock is when we'll push for lunch. And then we'll see what we have remaining for the afternoon sessions as well, okay? Either way, guys, I think that one of the things that I want to actually make sure that we go back through today is I want to make sure that always one of the most important points for me in the real estate transaction is this here, okay? Is the seller's expectation, public price, 24-hour price, feedback level, and then goal offers, okay, and then this part here determining feedback and price, okay. Really wanted to make sure that today we focus on this at the beginning to just ensure that it really resonates with you a little bit further and we can explain this a little bit more. The thing I do want to do is I want to go back through those examples and I want to show you guys the benefit to what auction is even on the worst case scenario. So let me give you an example of that. Remember those two properties that we had yesterday side by side, property number 1, okay, and also property number 2. Okay, we're going to use these numbers again and we're going to say seller's expectation, okay, for this property is 1 million. Okay, public price, remember, the price that we believe that the property could sell for within the next 60 days. The price that we believe the property can sell for in the next 60 days, okay? What you think the property can sell for in the next 60 days, guys, okay? And we said here it was $920,000, okay? Now, that sort of sets the tone for us. That sort of sets a little bit of a goal that we need our sellers to get to that level by the time that we've concluded the auction process. If we've sold it before or we sell it under the auction hammer, whatever, that's great. But our sellers' expectations need to be adjusted in order for us to have the best opportunity in doing so, remember. Okay? To have the best opportunity in doing so. Now, let's say we take it through a 4-week process. Now, we don't sell it before on the day of auction, then we put a traditional list price on the property, okay, and that price is $999. Okay, now, the second one, same thing. Seller's expectation is $1 million. Okay, public price, okay, is $920,000. Now, we go down, 4-week process, right, and they put a traditional list price on the property of $919,000. Now, again, guys, I don't want to patronize you, but can you please tell me which one is the successful process in this sense? Okay? Yep, number 2. Great. So let's talk about the other thing. Let's talk about the purple elephant in the room, is that This here is a pure reflection on your ability to run auction, okay? It is a pure reflection on your ability to run auction. However, this traditional list price of 9,999 is still better than putting a property on the marketplace at a high price in the very beginning. So let's talk through that, okay? Let's talk through how a traditional listing looks, that if you were going to do this, okay, how in 4 weeks, even getting them to price it at 999 is actually still a relative win, okay? It's still a relative win. So we're gonna take the worst case scenario and I'm gonna show you a traditional scenario. Okay, so a traditional scenario, right? This is if a property goes on the market. Now, the average statistics in Southern California anyway, and in the state of California, is that a property between 8 and 10% is what the average list price is above what the sellers want, okay? Not what it sells for, but what they want, okay? So if the seller's expectations on a property is $1 million, what would be the list price that you would likely put on that property? Give me some examples of what you think you would put. $1.2, $1.1, okay? So guys, let's go with no, Steve, this is not an auction, this is a traditional listing, okay? So let's not say 1.2, okay? Because 1.2, that's 20% over what the seller wants. Let's go down the lines of saying, let's say you're really good at pricing real estate in the beginning, okay? Let's say that it's 1.1. You guys have just proven my point beautifully, okay? However, either way, if a seller wants $1 million for the property, let's say that we say to the Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's probably good to put it at 1.1, see if there's any low-hanging fruit out there, blah, 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 blah. Right? I'm going to take you through the process. Now remember yesterday, one of the things that we did, okay, and I showed you in the listing presentation stuff, okay, is a diagram that we've come up with in the listing presentation stuff to show you exactly where we stand when it comes to this individual process. Just give me a second as I find that for you guys, okay? And I'll just share the screen with you now. Okay, so here, I know it's difficult to see, okay, but I've given the example, and I've been generous to not offend agents. I've given the example of if the property value is at $1 million, we overinflated a little bit to leave room for, you know, that negotiation. Just so you know, is that if you're a good enough agent, you should not leave room for negotiation. That is why they employ you. You should be good enough in order to get that business, okay? I'm just going to move this out of the way if it's going to move for me. It's not going to move anyway. So as you can see, I go through this process a little bit deeper, but I want to do this on the whiteboard to explain for you exactly what it's going through. And to show you, remember, this is the case study number 1 that is the worst case situation for an auction, okay? The worst case. All right, I want to show you how that is even better than traditional in the worst case of an auction. So you list the property at $1.1 million. Now, naturally, it's overpriced, so therefore, you don't get as many people as you want through the property in the very beginning. You know, it takes a little bit of time. The average number of weeks for a price reductions in the state of California is between 4 and 6. And from a North America standpoint, it's actually a little bit higher, but I didn't want to put that in our listing presentation folder. So 4 to 6 weeks. So let's say that you're going to deal in the least number of weeks. Okay, let's say that you're a good agent, you can get a price reduction in 4 weeks. So let's say you do your first price reduction, that takes you 4 weeks. Okay, now I just want you to understand that your first price reduction, because you're cautious of your relationship with your seller, is usually the smallest price reduction, and they're not really obviously too willing in order to reduce their price too much. So at $1.1 million, I would say that your next price reduction would be somewhere along the lines of $1,079,000, excuse me, that's 79. Okay, even though I would say that that's probably a decent price reduction, I'm just trying to be as generous as I possibly can to not offend anybody that does traditional real estate or has had situations like this. However, $1,079,000, you get the seller because all you say to him is that, hey, look, we just need to drop it a little bit to get a few more eyeballs on it, to bring it back to the top of the MLS and all of the, you know, the searches and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so then it's the smallest price reduction, right? That doesn't do anything because it's the smallest price reduction and you've taken 4 weeks. And remember, a property, okay, and I'm going to refer back over to the listing presentation side. If I can move this thing out of the way, I don't know why it's sticking around. Okay, sorry guys, I know that thing's in the way. Okay, I'll move it. I'll try and move it. I don't know what it's doing. That probably helps. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so as you can see here with the market engagement, marketplace starts to dwindle away after 7 days on the market. And these are statistics from Zillow. Okay, after 7 days on the marketplace, but it takes you between 4 and 6 weeks to get that average price reduction. So again, 4 weeks goes past, okay, then you do another price reduction. Now keep in mind, remember this the entire time. The thing I want to point out here is the public price. Remember the public price is $920,000, guys. So you've started at $1.1 million because the seller's got delusions of grandeur, 3 certainties in life, death, taxes, and people want too much for their homes in the beginning, okay? And ultimately, you've already started here $180,000 over what the property is worth, okay? So you've reduced it now to $1,079,000 after 4 weeks. You are absolutely nowhere closer. This is actually getting worse, the public price, because of the perception on the marketplace of the property. Then we go in for another price reduction here. Let's say that you do a really good job and you manage to get them to $1,049,000, under $1,050,000. Okay, under $1,050,000. You're at $1,049,000, and just so you're aware, guys, you are now collectively at 8 weeks, right? Then remember the average number of price reductions, okay? In North America is 3, okay? In California, it's actually a little bit higher, obviously because you've got a lot of the Inland Empire stuff and everything that takes a little bit longer to sell at different price points. But what I'm getting at is that you then come to your third price reduction, guys. That's another 4 weeks, okay? And let's say that you do a really good job, okay, and get them to do 999, okay, and finally get there. Now, collectively, you are on the market now for 12 weeks, but I just need to point something out, okay? First of all, you're still $80,000 away after 12 weeks, from the public price. Now, the public price is also a moving target. Okay, the public price in essence is probably now $900,000. It might be lower because of the reputation of the property, all the problems that now this has occurred with. Okay? Now, where we get to and where we are at the moment though with the sellers is the worst part of this transaction. You've had the property now for 12 weeks. Okay? Just so that you know, this is the time cycle of a seller's relationship with you. First week, they love you. Second week, they're still in love with you. Everything's going good. Third week, they're like, all right, this is great. I'm really looking forward to a result soon. Fourth week, where are my offers? Fifth week, I've got the wrong agent. Guys, this here is becoming a septic relationship that is going in the wrong direction, that now, not only are you $80,000 away, if you get an offer at $900 or $920, they are going to believe that it is absolutely all your fault. So after 12 weeks being at $999, or after 4 weeks being at $999, with the worst case scenario of an auction if you do a really poor job, and don't include the auction team, which one would you rather, folks? Which one would you rather? Yep. Now, I'm going to give you another situation. Okay? Just to prove this even further. And we're not going to go with the standardized approach. We're not going to go with the standardized approach of the averages. I'm going to say, let's say that a seller wants $1 million, public price is $920, you allow them to list it at $1.1 million in order to get the listing. Let's say that you're very, very, very effective at price reductions, okay? It's on the marketplace for 7 days, like the graph says, okay? 7 days, okay? And you get them down to $1 million, maybe 89, because they're definitely not going to come down any further than that, okay, after just 7 days. Right, let's say that it goes for another 7 days. But remember, the graph that is there in front of you, their statistics stipulate that only 3 days after a price reduction do you increase the level of interest again, only to then decline. It only lasts 3 days is that level of interest. But let's not go with those averages. Let's just use these, okay? So let's say that there is another 7 days, okay, and you get another price reduction, and you might get them to $1,069,000 at that point. okay? Because remember, they're not going to reduce it as much because you've been on the marketplace lower, okay? Let's say that you end up getting a few more price reductions on the property. Either way, you're making ground really, really quickly. Now, guys, I want you to realize something here. You're doing your job. You're doing what you're supposed to do as an agent. Absolutely. But the really bad thing about real estate is that there's a general perception from the public. Remember I mentioned to you yesterday when it come to prospecting is that the perception of a real estate agent isn't the nicest thing. If you allow people to make perceptions about auction or make assumptions about auction or make assumption about real estate agents, okay, it's usually negative, right? It's usually negative. So when it comes to this, the problem is that then if you come up against a real estate agent like me, okay, we're in a listing presentation for a coastal listing. This is a while ago now. The agent that we're in competition with can remain nameless. We don't need to go telling people who we're beating, even though I'd love to. But is the fact that that agent is known for being very proficient in getting price reductions and bringing people to the marketplace quickly, which, by the way, is an incredible skill set, and that is a skill set that you need to have, guys. It is the most important skill set in real estate, is bringing a seller to the marketplace as quickly as possible. But you need the right curtain to do it behind. Because unfortunately, if you do too many price reductions over a short period of time, I would use that against you in a listing presentation, and I did. To this gentleman, okay, even though I thought he did an amazing job on all of his listings, okay, I printed off his last, 6 months worth of listings that he had, which was like 6 or 7 properties, and I showed the sellers how many price reductions he was getting on a property. Okay, and I just said to them, guys, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't feel comfortable having somebody representing me with as many price reductions as what he is getting on his properties. Okay, it doesn't seem like he's out to get the most amount of money. It seems like he's out to just get your price down as quickly as possible, promise high, and just to not deliver later. Okay, so either way, guys, you are leaving a trail of breadcrumbs behind you. You are leaving a trail of breadcrumbs behind you if you are even being efficient at the traditional model. Okay, that people can follow and people can see, and you build a reputation in the marketplace. Another great example of this, I don't know if you guys know who this is, some of the people that aren't local, but locally there's a gentleman by the name of Tim Smith, okay? Pretty proficient at bringing sellers to the marketplace, but he has got an unbelievably poor reputation of underselling real estate. When I don't believe he undersells anything, I believe he gets good market value for everything that I've seen him get, but unfortunately because of the volume of price reductions that he's getting and the quick adjustments of prices that he does, okay, very, very bad reputation within the communities. Right? And that hurts him. Whereas we have the perfect silver bullet for this, guys. This is one of the rare things that you have a silver bullet to, if you remember to use it, is that we have this incredible curtain, this magical cloak, if we're going to take a Harry Potter reference, invisible cloak, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is, okay, of educating a seller on market value. For example, it is the auction process. Their expectations is a non-disclosed reserve price that stays behind the curtain until it comes to auction day, okay, or until it comes out after auction as a traditional listed property, okay? That is why one of the things that we implore you to do sometimes is postpone the auction for a few more weeks so that then we can have a little bit more time to educate. Auction works as a funnel, guys. Auction works as a funnel, or excuse me, a filter, okay? You put a poor expectation of a seller in at the top and it should come out purified at the bottom if you don't sell it before on the day of auction, if you run the process correctly, okay? So either way, guys, this is a curtain. Let me give you an understanding of this even further, another analogy, okay? If you like to eat steak, all right, you go to a steak restaurant, they bring it out, cooked to the perfection that you want it to be, and it's on your plate and it's hot, okay? If they brought the cow into the dining room, chopped its head off and started skinning it and cutting it up in front of you, probably a little less appetizing, right? Product has to go through market ready, okay? So for example, you buy bananas from Whole Foods. Those bananas have gone through an entire process to behind the scenes in order to then get out to the shelf when they're market ready. It is no different to your real estate. It has to go through a process behind the scenes as an auction, okay, in order to become market ready if it doesn't sell before or on the day. Please give me a yes if you understand where I'm going with this. Sorry for the cow reference. Okay? So just don't make it easy for people to leave a trail of breadcrumbs behind. Okay? So I'm just going to just put this up here because I'm going to refer to it a number of times through today and through this next part of the session. Now remember, guys, unwritten ground rule. The seller is not to see anything over $850 unless it is a written contract. How do we get them there? By asking more questions. Mr. Buyer, what do you think the property's worth? Or Mr. Agent, what do you think it's worth? Oh, it's got to be worth, mid nines, doesn't it? Oh, well, hey, would you put it on paper? No. You wouldn't put 900 on paper then? No. So you're telling me that you wouldn't even buy the home at $850,000. Oh, no, we're not looking. We're not serious at the moment. So the feedback then reads, not buyer thinks your home is worth $950. It reads, would not pay $850,000. Please be aware of the false economies that you guys create. Please be aware of the false economies that can be created if you don't ask more questions, guys. Okay? So, obviously one of my passionate points, folks. All right. So, folks, let's dive into today a little bit further, okay? And let's go through the next section of what we are going to be going through, which is seller communication. Folks, in your work booklet, if you're looking to follow along, we are on page 71 of your work booklet, okay? I'll be obviously making reference to it as we go through today, again, like I did yesterday. Like I mentioned, I'm going to get us all the way through to auction day as part of the accreditation, and then I'll be handing it over to Callista in order for her to take you back through and take you through how we list the property from a paperwork standpoint and what needs to happen, and take you through the My Auction system and give you a little bit of understanding of the website. Then after that, then I'll take you through how auction day kind of occurs, okay? We're going to be very limited on information with auction day because we don't want you to overthink it, because your job is the process leading up to auction day. I'll take you through the app. I'll also take you through as well, excuse me, I'll also take you through as well how to register to bid and how that all looks. And then we'll have a quick discussion about post-auction. All right, so communicating with the sellers, guys. Arguably, again, I know that there's a lot of important points that I bring up, is that, arguably one of the things that is, I believe, and I'm very passionate about, is one of the most important things in any real estate transaction is the communication to the sellers, so that they believe that we're doing the best job that we possibly can. It's as it says here on the slide that's now in front of you on the screen, it is a deposit and withdrawal relationship. It's a give-take. So for example, guys, communication with your seller is you putting a deposit in your relationship bank account. What is actually the definition of a deposit in a relationship bank account with your sellers? Is you actually calling them without them having to call you, folks, okay? So I'm of the very, very firm belief that you need to be talking to your sellers each day. Okay, during the listing, you need to be calling them every morning in order to give them an update. And you're probably sitting there thinking, well, what do I say to them? What do I say to them every day? And I'm going to take you through a little bit of a ploy and a little bit of a strategy in order to go through and have a conversation with them. These phone calls only go for a very limited amount of time. Okay, when I say limited amount of time, between 30 seconds and a minute, just to let the sellers know that you're thinking of them. Because guys, when it comes to building deposits into a relationship bank account, you're going to need to make a withdrawal at one time. And if there's not enough in there, that withdrawal, obviously just like any bank account, declines. Okay, so what you need to get to is a factor of having so many deposits built up that there's a level of mutual respect in the relationship that when you take a withdrawal of giving them some tough information, okay, or giving them a request from a perspective, you need to consider this offer, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, then it's much easier to do that. People often think that confrontation is a likelihood in real estate if the seller's expectations are too high. That is not the case if you've built your relationship bank account to the nth degree, all right? And I'll show you how to build that relationship even further, which is through the communication that you may have with them each day. Now, guys, I'll remove myself out of the way when we get down to that bottom section, but you can also, again, make reference to this in your work booklet at page 71. This is all there along with the scripts as well of what I'm about to take you through, as I believe it's over onto page 72. So this is the calendar of what I would be talking about with the sellers from Monday through to Monday, okay? So, for example, On the Monday after the open houses, I'd be recapping the open houses on the weekend and giving an overview of the week ahead. Now, it's important, guys, in these phone calls that you don't allow them to become too detailed orientated. Remember that today, these are the actions that are going to build your calendar of that ideal calendar and setup. And when do we go through the calendar and when do we create the calendar, guys? Can you tell me when we create the calendar of sale with the sellers? Can anyone tell me? There, 48 hours, within 48 hours? No, well, it's within 24 hours. The 24-hour meeting. The 24-hour meeting, guys, is when we do that. What do we go through in the 24-hour meeting, folks? What do we go through in the 24-hour meeting? Can anybody reiterate what we go through in the 24-hour meeting? Pro 6 points in calendar. Listing agreement, calendar, 6 points. Yeah, there you go. RLA, calendar, 6 points. There we go. That's perfect. All right. So, folks, that's where we set everything up. Okay. And this is a very key part of it that really fills the calendar up, is that we make a comment or make mention of this in the calendar at the beginning of every day. Between 9 and 10 o'clock, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you should expect a phone call from me. Okay. Where I just give you a bit of a recap of the day that was and also what I'm doing that day in order to get your property sold. So, for example, Monday. Now, this is the style of call that you make. Ring, ring, ring. Hi there, Mr. Seller. It's Ben Brady from Harcourts. How you doing? Oh, good, Ben. Great. Excellent. Just wanted to let you know, obviously, our open house, we held that on Saturday. Didn't speak to you yesterday being Sunday, but I wanted to let you know I've gone through. We've actually had 13 groups of people through. I told you we had 12 on Saturday, but 13 groups of people through the front door. I'm going to go through and follow all of those people up today. I'm going to actually then compile that report. Now, I want to give you a bit of an overview of the week ahead. We should be having our face-to-face meeting on Wednesday afternoon after our open house. Does that still suit you at 5:30? Oh, yes, it does. Wonderful. I'll be able to give you all the feedback that I can compile for that report then. However, moving through that is that Mr. and Mrs. Seller, like again, this week we've got an open house from 2 to 4 on Wednesday. We've got that one on Saturday from 1 to 3. Do they still work for you, Mr. Seller? Yes, they do. Now, just so you're aware, Mr. Seller, I'm going to give Mrs. Seller a call as well and tell her the exact same information so you don't have to relay it. But either way. So, folks, if you're making these calls, they need to be to both parties. All decision makers need to get that call in the morning. And even if you get a message bank, you should just say, hey, guys, just wanted to give you an update of yesterday and today. I'm just letting you know this is what's happening, so on and so forth. Okay? You need to make sure you're speaking to both parties. Tuesday, you can give a summary of the feedback after following up with everybody on the Monday, but don't get too deep. Don't talk about price. Do not talk about price at all. I'd just be saying, hey guys, I've got some good information from a lot of the buyers so far. I'm still clarifying that with their agents and a few others. You know, I'm still trying to get a hold of everybody. Okay, and I'll be compiling that report for you tomorrow or whenever it is, okay? The next day is ring, ring, ring. Hey, just wanted to confirm our open house today from 2 to 4. The property will be ready for me to show. That's correct. Yes, it will be great. And then 5:30 this evening will be, obviously, when we sit down together. It'll only take about half an hour for me to run you through the report that I've compiled. Great, no problems. Then obviously you're recapping the review meeting. Now guys, full disclosure is that the day after you do your review meeting, it doesn't have to be on a Wednesday, is probably going to be the longest call that you'll have all week because they're probably going to be a little bit bruised after you've given them the feedback that probably isn't exactly where they want to be. Feedback equals price, okay? So, either way, that's where they might vent. They might say, hey, look, you know, we're not happy with how things are going, blah, 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 which is fine. Okay, let them vent, folks. Okay, on the Friday we're confirming the open house. Okay, on the Saturday I actually made 2 calls. This says just do one, just a quick summary of the open house. I'd call them the morning of to make sure that they were still okay for the open. I'd call them quickly afterwards or shoot them a text and say, hey guys, this many people through. I'll be following up with them early next week. Okay, I'll let you know if anything comes out of it this weekend. Sunday, obviously, if you're not holding an open, don't call them. And then Monday it all starts again. Okay, either way, guys, all of those scripts, again, on page 72 of your work booklet that you can go through and you can get familiar with what you need to speak to your sellers about every day. They need to know that you're thinking about them, guys. This is the relationship bank account, that you need to start creating, because you'll see when we get to the weekly meeting, there is going to be some deposits that you withdraw on. Okay, you're going to withdraw on that bank account a little bit by pushing back on their expectations and price, folks. Okay? Anyway, all right, so give me a yes if you're on board with calling your sellers every week, or every day of the week, pretty much. Perfect. Okay, now we get to the next part of this, because guys, to give you an understanding of what we've already been through since the property's been live and on the market, we're handling the inquiry perfectly. We're not giving away price, okay? We're ensuring that most of our parties are coming through the open houses. Then also at the open houses, we're collecting everybody's information so that we've got people to follow up and get feedback from. Then we are also in that following up process, we're going down the path of provoking offers and getting the right price feedback out of people that aren't interested, making sure we're not giving away price, getting people back for second showings. Then we've gotten to the point now, whilst we've compiled all of that information and feedback on price, how do we give it to the sellers? Because if we simply put it into an email to them and send it to them, it can fall on deaf ears and it's not the right collective way. We need to strategically put that information together from a weekly report standpoint, and Callista has the template that she'll show you that my auction has, that you can build this when she goes through all of it. But this weekly report is being designed a specific way in order to have a top-down approach so that the information is given to them the right way. Okay, let me take you through this a little bit further, because we're going to go, like, the weekly report summary. Okay, I'm going to actually just quickly flip over and give you the example of it. I think that's easier to take you through so that there's no confusion, because the weekly report is designed from a top-down nature. We start off with the largest volume of people that see the property. Can anyone tell me where the largest volume of eyeballs see a property? Think more online, Yolanda. The internet, folks. We're not leveraging the internet as well as what we should, guys. Okay, because now some people might say to me, Facebook doesn't sell homes. And I 100% agree with you. Okay, I 100% agree with you. I don't believe social media sells properties whatsoever. Okay, you might get lucky every now and then. But what does it do? It creates incredible reports. It creates, yes, Steve, you're 100% right, okay, is that it creates incredible reports that you can show a seller that 3,500 people viewed your property, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Now, we know that those people are just crap, like it's just people looky-loos. But the sellers need to see the ratification of that people are seeing their property, okay? They need to see that, okay? So online is where most eyeballs see the property, okay? And that's what we need to start leveraging and using a little bit further. And that's why I've got this example for you here, okay? This report that I'm about to show you guys, this is a 2-page report that we have compiled. The template will be in my auction when Callista shows you it today. You'll get to see that, okay? However, this report here, I want to show you how it's structured. It is 2 pages, page 1 and page 2. Okay, this can be found if you're looking for an example on page 47 and 48 of your resource booklet, which is a separate booklet that you've got that you would have gotten outside of your work booklet. Okay, however, this here, as I show you on the screen how it's compiled, page 1 of this report is different to page 2. Page 1 of the report only represents the previous 7 days of this property being on the market. We don't compile all of the numbers for over the last 3 weeks. So let's say this report here has been designed for the last 3 weeks of the auction, okay? However, on page 1, it is not the collective numbers, it is only the last 7 days. And the reason that we only provide the seller on page 1 the last 7 days, so it doesn't dilute, okay, or it doesn't misrepresent the lack of activity that happens as the weeks go on. Because we have a lot of our volume in the first week, we have a little bit less volume second, we have a little bit less volume third, okay, and then the week of the auction we see a little bit more volume, okay, because the auction date is coming up. We don't want the best week being the first week to mask the fact of the second and third week are worse, okay? We don't want them thinking, remember this approach here, guys, all right? This is designed to have them not think, oh, well, the longer we wait, the market will just go up. Because if it does, that's fine. We just want them to be able to see the market when it turns up. Remember, if we educate them to 850, if $1 million turns up, does it stop them from accepting it? Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? Does it stop them from accepting it if we educate them to 850? No. It ensures they accept it because they can see the marketplace clearer. Okay? Cool. So, from this report, again, first page, The first page, what does the first page of the report represent, guys? Give me it in the chat. What does the first page of the report represent? 7 days, the previous 7 days, correct. Okay? The previous 7 days of activity. The previous 7 days of activity. Okay? So let's go through this report a little bit further. 123 Smith Street, Laguna Beach. Realtor.com, Redfin, Zillow, tinyurl.com. That is actually the auction website. Okay, and you can get that information from just emailing the girls and they can actually send it out. These are actual numbers that we pulled from a report, okay? Zillow is always the number one for us from a perspective of eyeballs. And even though we get about 300% more people that look online of an auction than what you do traditionally. But right here, guys, what I'm trying to say to the sellers, I want to show you what I'm trying to say. Collectively, let's just call this, what is it? Let's just call it 6,000, okay? So collectively, there are 6,000 people that have viewed your home, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Out of those 6,000 people, we had 8 phone calls on the property. Out of the 8 phone calls, we had 7 people come through the open houses and we had 1 person come back a second time, okay? So what I'm trying to say subliminally, without being too harsh, is Mr. and Mrs. Seller, out of the 6,000 people that saw your property, we got 8 phone calls, which means 5,992 people said no. 5,992 people said no. Okay? So this is important subliminally how this report is structured. Because a phone call, they're not seeing the property, then we got 7 people that came through that. So someone dropped off along the way because they looked at it more and they didn't think it was right for them after they had called on the property. Okay? So we're trying to show them that we are exposing your property incredibly. But unfortunately, not the entire marketplace is accepting your property. Okay? We move down. General feedback and comments. Now guys, this statement here, I want you to notice one thing. There is nothing about price. There is nothing about the property, okay? There is only stuff about what the level of interest is at the moment. A general market update is what this is. A general market update. Inventory's up, inventory's down, blah, blah, blah. We had this property come on the market. We had whatever it may be. I'll talk to you how you go. The next part of what we go through next is how we present this to the sellers in the weekly meeting. Now, I want to show you how we then compile the feedback. I want you to notice date. I want you to notice name. The name, I do not give last name because I don't want them looking them up on social media. I've had sellers multiple times say to me, I'm not selling to that buyer. Have you seen their profile on Facebook? Blah, 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 blah. Okay? Again, they're making assumptions about others. For some reasons, sellers create enemies of buyers in their own mindset. Okay? Now, so then you can see here, I need to make this point really clear. This is one of my passionate points, folks. Okay? Let me show you this quickly first, sorry. Comments/status update. I want to show you this. And if you're not focused and you're on your phone, this is important. None of this says anything about them liking or disliking the property. None of this says anything about liking or disliking the property. If you say Matt and Brooke don't like the home because it's near a road, they think your property is worth $1,150,000, they completely discredit that buyer because they don't like the property. They completely discredit that buyer if they don't like the property, guys. And that price feedback that is so valuable doesn't get listened to. Give me a yes if you're understanding that. I'll go through it one more time. Okay? Matt and Brooke, 3 to 6 months away from purchasing. Value seen at $1 million to $1,050,000. They have a budget of $3 million. Guys, this is purified feedback at its absolute best. Let me tell you why. They think the property is worth $1,150,000, but they have a budget to pay more. They have a budget to pay more. Do not include Matt and Brooke, they really like the home or they do not like the home because of this. Do not attach the buyer's name to their comments about the property. Do not attach the buyer's name to the comments about the property, because that buyer loses complete credibility for telling the truth. And then they will not listen to the price feedback that they give. This is somewhere where you've got to make a moral decision, guys, as well. So for example, do you see this one? Sees value at 1.1 million, unknown. Can you see where I am? Give me a yes if you see where I am. Okay. So here, the reason that it's put unknown is because their budget is probably $1.1 million. Now, personally, I would never allow my sellers to have clouded judgment from a buyer that says it's worth 1.1 and their budget is 1.1. Because that buyer loses complete credibility because they're just thinking it's worth that because that's what their budget is. I've always left it blank if their budget is the same as their feedback, because at the end of the day, it's irrelevant what their budget is if they've come to the property and thought that they could buy it for the 1.1. So I'm not going to make anything up, but I'm going to eliminate some information, just like I'm eliminating the buyer's comments about the property away from them so the sellers can see the marketplace clearer. Again, remember, if we educate them to 850, does it stop them from accepting $1 million? No. Okay? So either way, guys, I hope you can understand and you can see that a little bit deeper. Now, let's go to page 2. Keep in mind that this doesn't have to be grasped by you today. It doesn't have to be grasped by you by auction 1. Okay? That is what the auction team is there to do, is help you all the way through this process, guys. By your third auction, you should be a real estate weapon. Okay? So, the next part of this is where we give them the comments about the property. Notice that there are no buyer's information anywhere near this. View is a selling point, floor plan and layout is unfavorable, volume of work to be completed is a downside, master suite is good size. Okay? The other thing that you've got to be conscious of as well, guys, with these reports, please don't piss your sellers off with the obvious stuff. The road noise is a problem. No shit, okay? The 5 freeway backs to the property. Please don't be Captain Obvious about this. By continuing to rub in their face about obvious things will really annoy them, okay? You've got to keep them on side, right? Whilst it might be a comment, please don't continue to bring it up, right? Because it's something that cannot be changed. If it's something cosmetically, like the colors are, too dark and whatever it may be, sure, mention it, but don't keep rubbing it in their face. They get annoyed with that type of stuff. Just make it about price. Just make it about price. Just make it about price. Okay? So, collective feedback from over the last, remember, what does page 2 represent? Collective feedback from to date, whether it be consistent comments or prices. So these are the open houses that have happened to date on the property, okay? You can see the buyer's level, and there's a graph in that report that you guys can manipulate. Now, this is from a visual standpoint, guys. For example, I'm a very visual person. I wouldn't really look at anything else before I went to the graph. The graph is where I would levitate towards, and visually, can everyone see this blue line down the bottom? From this, let's just say that they want $1.3 million. Is there a discrepancy between what they want and what the buyers think that their property is worth? Yep. And it's pretty easily seen. It's pretty easily seen in that individual graph. And from a visual perspective, there is a discrepancy there. Then you talk about the averages. Highest feedback to date, lowest feedback to date, average feedback to date. And this is where you can provoke a conversation with the sellers around their expectations. And I'm going to show you how to deliver that here very shortly. Can I get a yes if you're on board? You understand the purpose of the report. Can you see how it's so important with the report, folks? It's so important with the report that it's the way that it is delivered in that, it's the way that it is delivered in that report then holds the most effect. The second thing that holds the most effect is the way that you present it to your sellers. Let's dive into that and dive into the weekly meeting. For reference, okay, guys, communication with sellers, page 71 over to 72, where those scripts were. weekly summary report. Everything that I just went through with you is then on over to page 73 of your work booklet and over to the top of 74. We are now at the weekly seller review meeting. Okay, we are now at the weekly seller review meeting. Now, guys, the weekly seller review meeting, I quite often, because of my sort of direct approach, people believe that I'm very aggressive with negotiation and very aggressive with the sellers. If you've ever had the opportunity of working with me, you would understand that I am not in any way, shape, or form. Okay, you would understand that I'm not in any way, shape, or form. Okay, well, I might just continue on while we just fix my computer. I'll have Kerner do that for us, just so that in the interest of momentum and continuing forward. Moving through what I'm sharing on the screen here with you. I'll share it just again quickly. Okay, is that continuing forward with the weekly review meeting with the sellers is that one of the things that we need to ensure, okay, is that in that meeting, the way that we deliver the weekly report is one of which we take them through the information. There was a quick discovery that I had to make when I was delivering the weekly report to people, and that discovery was that if you simply email the report to a seller, okay, it ultimately is just going to fall on deaf ears eventually. Whilst it might make an impact when you email it to that seller or you deliver it to their front door and they're reading it on their own, they then start to, after they've read it, come up with the excuses why that information isn't going to be right for them, or it's not right, it's different, you know, no, our property is different. They start to build a rebuttal in their own mindset by talking themselves out of the feedback that has been generated. So one of the things that I had to discover in real estate, okay, and it took me a little while to do so, to be honest with you, it probably would have made my life a little bit easier for the first 12 months of me doing it, is that I was delivering the reports to the sellers before I would do the weekly meetings with them. And I'd walk into those weekly meetings with them, and what would happen is that these people would be so aggressive, okay? They would be just pissed off. And I just thought that people were pissed off in general, okay, when it came to selling their home. But that really wasn't the case, because I had a situation where I was selling a property one time. I sent the report out, that same report that you guys saw just before. I sent that report out, and I walked into the property to do the weekly meeting on the Thursday, and that seller had the report for 2 weeks. Sorry, not 2 weeks, 2 days. With that said, is that over those 2 days, he had managed to go onto his dining table, where this dining table was huge. It was probably about 12 foot long, okay? And what it had come to is that he had gotten out like a map, and he had pinned his property against other properties. He'd printed off every sale in the last 5 years, you know, and was trying to debunk the theory of what's going on, trying to debunk the theory of the feedback that he had ultimately received on the property. And what had happened is that I'd walked into that meeting, and then he just started defending the property straight away. I didn't even get an opportunity to talk about the feedback, nothing. So anyway, as you could imagine, it was a pretty frustrating meeting from everybody's perspective. You know, I was pretty pissed off, for lack of better terminology, when we were doing that. After that meeting, I walked into the office, and my business owner at the time, who I was the personal assistant for as I was coming through high school, he's like, "Well, I can tell you're in a bad mood. What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Well, I just had a meeting with Peter Rogers, you know, the seller down there at 144 Westlake Drive in Westlake." He's like, "Oh, you know, you're going to absolutely have to sell that property because Peter knows everybody." And I'm like, "Well, thanks for that. That's a really good pep talk, first of all." However, then he pointed out something pretty clearly. He said to me, "Ben," he goes, "Why was he so aggressive?" I'm like, "Well, he just had gone through the weekly report and just started like making notes on it and building all of these situations of why his property was worth more." He even had a property where, you know, it sold 5 years ago, and he was comparing his home to it. Like, just silly stuff. And Bill said to me, the business owner, he goes, "So you give your reports to the sellers before you go to the weekly meeting?" And I'm like, yeah, I do. And what he had said is that he goes, "Ben, you were my personal assistant for 4 years," which I was. He goes, when did you ever deliver a weekly report of ours to a seller before we went and did the weekly meeting?" And I said, "Never. But Bill, you don't have email. And secondly, you would get the report done right at the last minute with the last bit of feedback before we'd go." And he goes, "You might think that's laziness, but it was actually by design, is that I would never give a seller the feedback report on their own, because they're simply just going to come up with reasons with why it's not right. even though it is. Even though it's market feedback that they need to listen to, they're going to talk themselves out of it if they have too much time on their own. It's like buyer's remorse. You give a buyer an opportunity to rethink their decision. Most of the time, when it comes to a major purchase, 90% of the time, they're going to rethink it, right? So one of the things that he said is stop giving your sellers the reports before you get there. And that was one of the things that really resonated with me from a perspective of getting that report done is then when I would take the report with me to that weekly meeting, people were so much nicer. They were so much nicer because I wasn't walking in to a loaded meeting where they knew what it was going to be about, which is the feedback that was on their report. Can I get a yes if that makes sense to you guys? I want you to understand, providing the report or just sending the report to a seller is really, really, really weak real estate. If you send them a text with feedback, let me give you another example of this. If you send them, let me give you another example of why open houses and getting people through those open houses is so important. If you do a private showing with a buyer and you allow that to happen, what does the seller ask from you straight away after they've done that private showing? How'd it go? And you can't exactly say, I'll give it to you in your report. That's really rude. That's why getting everyone through the open houses is also critical to the process as well, so that therefore you don't have to give the seller feedback from one-off people that attaches the feedback of what they're saying or the comments to their name. The comments of the property don't have to be attached to their name at then that point. So getting back to the weekly report, guys, and going through this from a summary perspective, this is the only time that you need to have a tough conversation with the sellers. Once a week. You need to lean into the discomfort. I'm going to show you how to do that as we progress forward, but I just want to go through the agenda of the weekly meeting. Now let's talk about setting up the weekly meetings. Remember, we do the calendar of sale in the 24-hour meeting. This is when you set those meetings with the sellers. Ideally, you would love them to come into the office so you don't have screaming kids running around you and the wife cooking dinner, okay, or the husband cooking dinner and not even listening to you and they've just gotten home from work and the dogs are barking and there's just shit everywhere, okay? Ideally, you can bring them into the office to control the environment, but again, that's just in the ideal world. Sometimes you can't do that. Most of the time you can't do that. So either way, to ensure that there is some clarity of the meeting, making sure you make emphasis when you're going in the 24-hour meeting, going through the calendar, guys, I'm going to need your undivided attention for just probably between 15, 20 minutes where we go through the report once a week. Now, let's say that those sellers live overseas or in another state or somewhere outside of the local area, then you need to set it up correctly with them in that calendar. Mr. and Miss Seller, I'm going to need you near a computer. Okay, because we're going to walk through the report together. I will never deliver the weekly report to you without you being able to see it at the same time. Okay, so either way, guys, that is something that you definitely need to get from that perspective, is the opportunity in order to make sure that you have their undivided attention. So for example, if you were to call the seller and do your weekly meeting over the phone or on a Zoom call, it would be easier to share your screen with them like what we're doing, okay, over Zoom or on Skype or whatever it may be, and walk them through the report and then send it to them after the meeting to keep the level of control. Or you can email it to them when you're on the phone. So for example, ring, ring, ring. Hey Bob, it's Ben Brady, just giving you a call, ready for the weekly meeting? Yes, great, excellent. You buy the computer? Yes, I am. I've just hit send on the report as I've just finished it off. Let me know when you've got it and we'll walk through it together. I like the element of doing Zoom meetings, guys, because then you can control, when you share your screen, you can control the report so that they're not flicking through it and you're losing them. Because me, if I had the report, I would go straight to the graph and go, what's this crap? Okay? So again, there's a level of control. So on your screen, you should be able to see this agenda with 7 points. Okay, this is the weekly meeting agenda that you can go through. This is page 75 of your work booklet, guys, if you're looking for reference. And the first thing that I always say at all of my weekly meetings is this first question, okay, which is, do you believe that I'm doing everything in my power in order to get your home sold? Okay, guys, this is a really important point here. A really important point. Every week you need to be asking this question. Ask it multiple times. Hey, do you believe I'm doing everything in my power in order to get your home sold? If the answer is no, clearly there's some trouble, but that is deposits and that is leverage at a later date. Why is it leverage at a later date? When the seller says, well, we're not going to accept that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you've said to me that I've been doing everything in my power. You've agreed that I've been doing everything in my power to get your home sold. With all due respect, I don't know what more we can do in order to captivate a different marketplace. This is the market. Okay? You can't be blamed then. Okay? You can't be blamed. Strategic approach, folks, this is. Then we're presenting the weekly report. We're reviewing the numbers and the advertisement, going through the open house volume and the calls that we've had. We're speaking about the flyers and the brochures and everything that we've done for the property as well. Okay, providing the number of people that have viewed the property from the appointments, the auction numbers through the auction websites and all of those different types of stuff. And then providing a real estate market update, guys. This here is something that gets really missed in weekly meetings, is that the market is constantly changing week in and week out. We need to be providing them a weekly update of what the market's doing. The other thing that I need you to do is that when you list the property, sign your sellers up to the MLS alerts of new properties that come onto the marketplace in that area. Or if you don't do that, sign them up to the Zillow alerts, okay? When a new property comes onto the market or goes pending or sells or is sold, they need to be seeing what competition is coming onto the market and what their competition is selling for as well, okay? So that they're fully aware and you can tell them, hey, this property came on the market, it dilutes your sale price. I've got an auction tomorrow, okay, up in the Bay Area where a new listing came on the marketplace, $200,000 less than what their property is, and it's a better home. So what do you think I've done in the weekly meeting this week? Use that as an opportunity to go, guys, if we get anything at auction, you need to take it because that property there is going to ruin your opportunity to get more money. Okay? So, we discussed the feedback from the people, okay, who have been through. Now, when we say feedback, we're talking about price, folks. We are talking about price, and we're talking about those consistent comments. We're talking about the graph. We then also, guys, this is an important action here, folks, is future action, okay? Future action. Here, what I didn't mention, reviewing the calendar and going through and crossing off everything you've done is a process of elimination with that seller. Then you talk about the week that is ahead and everything else that's going to happen that week in the calendar, okay? Now, the final questions. This is where you lean into the discomfort of having tough conversations with good people that I'm going to show you how to frame up. I'm going to give you a small, shallow dive into tough conversations with sellers, and then in the workshop, educating sellers that you can come to on the hub and stream into. That is when we do it for a couple of hours and give you a lot of scripts. However, this is where the questions come in play. The questions that I ask at the end of the meeting. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, our highest feedback has been X, and or our highest offer which you rejected has been X. How close to this offer would you accept? Or how close to that feedback would you accept? I need you to realize the language here, guys. Our highest offer has been, our highest piece of feedback has been X, or if you've got an offer, our highest offer that we rejected has been X. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I need to know how close to that you would start to consider. Not how much will you take, not what is your bottom line, how close to that will you start to consider, or will you take? Another change in language, guys, that I have, which we take you through in the seller education, but I'll talk about it now, okay, is what won't you take? Not what will you take, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Stupidest question in the entire world. Remember, we manage greed for a living. What won't you take? What's a price you would not even consider? So there's what they want, there's their bottom line. What won't they take is under their bottom line, guys. You need to get down to the really, really low numbers. All right? So folks, some rules out of the weekly meeting. First rule, do not give them the report on their own. Why do we not give them the report on their own, guys? Can you please tell me in the chat section? They will, yeah. It's not dispute. They're allowed to dispute, guys. I want to be very clear here. They're allowed to dispute the feedback. They're allowed to push back. But the thing is that they will talk themselves out of it, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. If you're not in front of them, they will talk themselves out of the feedback. Okay. Also, they will be so pissed off at you when you go into the meeting that they don't want to hear anything you say anyway. Okay. Managing their expectations and the approach to it. Okay, remember that report, it's important to go through every line of that report, showing them the first week, making the comment that, hey, volume's down from the second week, okay? Also going through the calendar. The calendar is important as well, folks. The calendar is important as well from a perspective of, okay, making sure you're going through and ticking off everything that you've already done for a process of elimination, and then also going back and, going forward and showing them the future actions that you then can take, okay? Sorry guys, my computer's having a meltdown again, but that is what it is. I'm just going to continue forward without you guys, without me being able to see a little bit of the chat. I might just bring it up here. So just forgive me if I can't see your chat, guys, as I try and get this back up and going. Either way, so folks, the weekly meeting is so important. And remember, at the end of that weekly meeting, okay, you're also going through a real estate market update and showing them the competition that's coming onto the market as well. And you're asking them how close to that feedback or how close to that offer that we rejected would you consider? Okay? How close to that would you consider? All right. So now we're going to go into the next portion, which is handling offers prior to auction. Okay? Handling offers prior to auction is an important part, obviously, but it's very difficult for me to actually show you how we do this. Handling offers prior to auction is a very difficult thing because it's so circumstantial based on the property, based on expectations, based on the offers, based on the interest, based on no interest, based on all of these different things. And it would take us a very, very long time in order for me to go through every individual scenario. But the one thing that I want to go through and I want to brainwash you in, and I say the words brainwash you, okay, because it's important for me it's important for me to understand that you know what the best course of action with this is, okay, is first thing you do if you get an offer on a property prior to auction, call Jason or Jonathan, okay? Jason is the director of auction and handles all the offers prior to auction, so you should call Jason, okay? But guys, can you tell me, what is the first thing that happens when you get an offer prior to auction? Please type it into the chat section. Please type it into the chat section. What is the first thing you do? Call Jason. Okay? Call Jason or Jonathan. Call Jason or Jonathan. Call Jason or Jonathan. That is the thing that you absolutely need to do, guys, when you get an offer. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to take you through just a little bit of the internal process when it comes to offers prior to auction. I want to take you through that a little bit deeper so that then you can have a better understanding of it. You can have a better understanding of just our internal process and just some of the things that happen. So for example, the first thing is that all pre-auction offers must receive the offer prior to auction email. That is a templated email that you'll see in My Auction, okay, that then you can send to people once they've placed an offer on the property that gives them a little bit of a lay of the land of the process. All pre-auction offers must not contain inspection contingencies or subjects. Now, guys, I'll give you an example of that. Is that when someone offers prior to auction, they're going to be probably most of the time they're going to have inspection contingencies. Even though we've done everything up front, they're most of the time probably going to have that. Now, in saying that, is that what that means is that if we are going to accept the offer prior to auction, we need to do everything that we can with the leverage that we've got prior to auction, regardless of whether they're the only bidder or there's only buyer or there's multiple buyers that are interested, to remove inspection contingencies. There's too many variables in place and buyers can get out of the contract way too easy with inspection contingencies. So we will do everything in our power that if we are going to accept that offer prior to auction, that actually is removed. All offers prior to auction must have the regional director or auctioneer's involvement before responding or being accepted. Pretty straightforward, because what do we do, guys? I know this is brainwashing, but please put in the chat section. What do we do? What is the first thing we do if we get an offer on the property? What is the first thing we do when we get an offer on the property, guys? It's all right. Call Jason or Jonathan. Okay? If there is multiple offer situation, so this, we're just... sorry guys, I don't know why that's doing that. All right. So, If we receive, so if there is a multiple offer situation prior to auction day and the listing agent is representing a buyer, the regional auction director or auctioneer must assist in presenting the offer to the sellers. Okay, so guys, one of the reasons why we do this is to make sure that there isn't any bias, because, and what I mean by the biased is that there's sometimes an agent will push an offer that they probably shouldn't because they're representing a buyer. We just want to make sure that you're not doing that. Now, most of the time, hey, don't get me wrong, we want you to double end the deal. There's no question about that. But in saying that, we want to make sure that we're accepting the right offer so it doesn't fall through. We've had situations in the past where an agent will just call us and go, oh, we've accepted an offer. And we automatically know. You were representing the buyer, weren't you? Yep. And then it falls out of escrow, and that property, for lack of better terminology, is then screwed, okay, because of what you've done. So, either way, okay, all offers presented to the seller must be on a CAR approved contract. That's for California, obviously. Just your local state, okay, or province or whatever it may be. Contract is important. It needs to be on that documentation, okay? All pre-auction offers must be from a buyer that has been cross-qualified through a lender approved by the listing agent or Harcourt's auctions before acceptance. We just need to make sure that if we're going to accept that offer prior to auction, they can financially perform if there is a finance contingency on it. If the offers are not at a level that the seller will accept, there will be no counter offer. We'll talk about that soon. The regional auction director and auctioneer will communicate to the buyers or the agent, okay, that at this stage it's not enough to stop the auction. So guys, this is one of the most contentious parts of the process, is that when we do not counter an offer prior to auction. Now, the reason we don't do that is, first of all, it's just stupid and the most laziest form of real estate negotiation ever. And I don't mean just for auction. In traditional, if you're countering offers, that is so dumb, okay? Because one, it takes too long and people talk themselves out of the deal and time kills all deals. Secondly, is that you are just a postal messenger at that point, going back from one person to the other. There needs to be a form of negotiation here from the seller's perspective. If a buyer places an offer on a property, okay, we do not provide a counter offer. We simply go back to them and say, guys, that's not enough to stop the auction at this point from the seller's perspective. You need to come back with your highest and best if you'd like to stop the auction, or simply register to bid, okay? And the reason that we do that is because as soon as you give them a counter offer, it's just like, okay, let me give you an understanding of this. As soon as you give a buyer or their agent a perception of what the seller's looking for as an expectation, whether it be on the first inquiry call at the open house, even if you're giving them comparable sales, guys, you're telling them what it needs to be in order to buy it. What's the point of doing an auction? You're scaring them away. What is your job? Gather bidders, not to find the buyer. Do not discriminate on price. Get them into the property, see whether or not they like it, then make an agreement on price, okay? Then, once they're engaged, get them in. You've got to ensure the claws are into them, the hook is into them, okay? And too often, you don't allow that hook to take its best angle because you're giving it a price away at the beginning. Even what do you think the home's worth? Your ego needs to be checked at the beginning of your auction process to say, I don't know. I really felt uncomfortable comping this property out. I'm not sure. What do you think? Okay? Most people won't do that. Now, let's say that you're representing one of the buyers as well as the sellers. You don't have to give them an understanding of value on the property at all. It is not your fiduciary obligation to do so. Okay? You can simply say to them, please understand, guys, that you've asked me to represent you because it gives you an advantage. You need to make your own assessments in perspective to price, and I would recommend that you speak to the auction team or put an offer in, speak to the auction team. You can say to them as well, just put an offer in at the bidding to start from price, and then we can get the auction team to have a conversation with you. Or just register to bid for the auction. If it gets to a price you're comfortable with, you can pay more, okay? If you're not comfortable with the price that's bidding, don't bid. Costs nothing to register, and you're not obligated to bid even if you are registered. Okay? Give me a yes if that makes sense, guys. Give me a yes if you guys understand what I'm saying. Just so you know, I can't see the chat section, by the way. Either way. So then diving into this a little bit further, guys, in situations, the next couple of situations that I've got here on the in our booklet, which I'm just going to take you through on the board here just quickly so that you can see them. I'm limited for space, so I'll keep it just down here. So sorry, because I don't want to rub these off. I want to make sure that I keep this and I can keep referring to it and refreshing your memory. Okay, so either way, let's say that we have a situation where we get multiple offers on the property prior to auction, which isn't uncommon. So, for example, let's say that we get 4 offers on the property. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well, you say it's this property here. Remember our BTS, our bidding to start from on this property is 800. So let's say that we get one at, we always get that one at something around $850,000 because we want that 24-hour price, the feedback price. Okay, offer number 2, it might come in somewhere along the lines of, it might be a $900,000 offer. Okay, because it's on paper, it's written, it's above our feedback level. Okay, we might get, in that situation, we might get a, something along the lines of 875. Okay, and we might have a $910,000 offer. Okay, at this point, what we would do is that we would say to everybody, we would send out a counter offer, not about price, that would say, guys, you have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to resubmit your highest and best to try and stop the auction. If at that point it's not enough to stop the auction, we will take the property further to auction day. Now, sometimes we might not do that because in this scenario, everybody's relatively close enough that that would make an incredible auction. So we might skip that part and we might go directly and just say, guys, you've got to register to bid for the auction. Okay? Now, if there was more of a separation or more of a gap, okay, where one buyer might be at 930, 940, and none of the other buyers are anywhere near that, that's when we might just do that highest and best situation to give it one more chance for them to put their highest and best in order to stop the auction, to see whether or not anybody could compete with that buyer on the day of auction. Now, okay, let's say that in this situation that there's one buyer that goes above and beyond. Okay, this buyer at 910 goes, all right, I'm going to 950. Okay, which is well over our public price. Okay, I'm going to 950. This buyer doesn't go up much. This buyer doesn't go up much. That buyer doesn't go up much. Okay, is that in that situation, I would say, depending, okay, probably should accept that offer prior to auction and run. Okay, however, sometimes the sellers want the process of elimination, or sometimes they need the process of elimination of all these people going to auction to then know that the 950 is absolutely the best that we can possibly get. Okay, so there's so many different circumstances that come up in perspective to that, but that is why when you get an offer on a property, what do you do? What do you do, guys? Type it into the chat section. What do you do? Again, I'm assuming you're putting in there calling Jason. Okay, or Jonathan. So, guys, it's, again, as you can see, I struggle explaining offers prior to auction a little bit because it's so circumstantial to that property, to that seller, to the education process that has been done, to how well you've done it, to, to all of these different things, okay, that come into play. I just wanted to give you a general outline of where that stands. All right. We're bridging closer to 11:30, guys. As we move through, we're going to go through to our next section here, which is adjusting the seller's expectations. I might save that. We might do a quick little 10-minute break now in the interest of momentum. It's 11:20. If we can be back here at 11:30, guys, that would be ideal. Do a quick little break now so then we can power through, okay? Can I just, excuse me, sorry. Can I just get a yes if you guys are okay with that, please? Back here at 11:30, folks. Just get a yes just to confirm that, please. So team, obviously the next part of the session that we're going to be going through is sellers' expectations and adjustments. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is this part of the business because I do believe that it's the most important part of the business that you can actually learn because it's important in order to be able to make sure that the information that you've gathered, then obviously this is where you lean into the discomfort of having a tough conversation with them. And again, guys, everyone asks that are we always having tough conversations? The answer is no. It's once a week in that weekly meeting where you provoke it, because if the seller says that their expectations aren't aligning with the marketplace and you just simply go, okay, okay, then that's just not good enough. It is absolutely not good enough in every way, shape, and form. So when it comes to sellers' expectations, as you can see on your screen now, I believe, and I've said this a few times, that we manage greed for a living. Okay, I know it might sound like a cynical approach to real estate, but again, I've done it on such a vast volume that you could never argue that it's different to me. Okay. Regardless of what country you're in, what price point you're in, what type of real estate you're in, it's management of greed in every way, shape, and form. So, guys, I think that one of the things that we need to obviously consider is the fact of how are we sharpening our sword in order to make sure that we have the best chance of getting a deal done. Because the only reason most of the time a deal doesn't get done when it's in the auction process is because the seller's expectations are getting in the way of actually the marketplace. Because that's what we have to try and go through the process of elimination with them to get them to realize that the only thing getting in the way of this property selling is their expectations, for them to actually realize. But we've got to do it in a way where it's not offensive, obviously. We've got to do it in a way where it's not offensive, it doesn't get them offside, because they ultimately, as soon as your relationship is tainted with them, they're not going to listen to you regardless of what you have to say. So, excuse me, why isn't that doing that? Okay, so before having any type of conversation or tough conversation with the sellers, you've got to earn the right. Remember, we spoke about the tough conversations, or excuse me, the relationship bank account. You have to earn that right. You have to earn the right before you have any type of these conversations where you ask that question to get them thinking. Instant gratification will not exist for you in seller education based off the premise that these conversations are questions to get them thinking that aren't going to get them down off price. This is not real estate by magic. I can't wave a magical wand over a seller and get them to expect less straight away. Okay, well, sure, yeah, does it happen? Sometimes, but certainly not on a mass quantity. Okay, you've got to make sure that you're having these type of conversations and you've got a good cadence that you've built up with these type of conversations that then ultimately it makes sense to them eventually when it comes back in front of them. Instant gratification does not exist in seller communication. Instant gratification doesn't work in real estate in general, guys. If you've got instant gratification problems, get the hell out of it, because you're going to be constantly frustrated. Okay, so how do we frame up a conversation? How do we frame up a conversation with a seller in order to make sure it's the most effective and it's the most polite while cutting through the best that we possibly can? We've got to prep people for these type of conversations or these type of comments and questions that we're about to ask them. If you just ran up to somebody on the street and punched them in the arm and they didn't even know who you were, it's likely that the reaction's going to not be good, right? Okay, but if you walked over to them and explained why you're going to do it and you said, hey, brace yourself, and you punched them in the arm, whilst they still might be confused and a little bit like, oh, that stung a little bit, okay? It's not as bad of a reaction because you've prompted them for it, okay? So these are some comments that you can use. There's some other ones that obviously we train you on in the seller expectation or seller education training session that we do, or workshop that we do on a standalone perspective, but these are the ones that we can go through now. The first one, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what I'm about to say to you may potentially offend you. However, it will get you one step closer to getting your home sold. Is it okay if I continue? Pre-frame. Next one. The hard part about my job is having tough conversations with good people, and this is one of those times. Okay? So this is something that you can say to suggest that what's coming, might not be the easiest conversation in the world, rather than just whack. There you go. You can't take a verbal 2x4 to somebody and expect them to respond well. Okay? Sometimes you definitely do need to be more aggressive than other times, but my advice to you is get the auction team to be aggressive versus you be aggressive, because you need to maintain that emotional relationship with your seller. Guys, after you've pre-framed that conversation, there are a few different approaches. The first one that I would go through is the fall on the sword approach. This is when you're delivering to a seller that ultimately you probably overpromised a little bit in the beginning, or even if you haven't, it is always your fault. Let me make a clear point here, folks. If anyone has ever said the words when I'm in a meeting with them, I told you would only get that in the beginning of this listing, you are silly. Okay? I almost said you're an idiot, okay? But you are very silly to do so, because the sellers, the moment they are proven wrong and are embarrassed of that, okay? What is the one thing that most sellers believe they understand? Real estate. Okay? About 60% of the people that I've ever come across always believe, I've sold a lot of homes. That doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. Okay? All right? I've sold, 5 or 6 properties. Wonderful. That's great. Okay? Doesn't mean that you understand real estate to the nth that you should, because you've probably sold those 5 properties in times where you bought it for $200,000. It's now worth $1 million. It's easy to sell real estate from that pretense. Okay? So, either way is that we need to make sure that we are going down the path of taking a direction at that point in time based on where they stand at that point. If you've got to deliver some poor information about pricing, make sure that you blame you. You are the problem. It's your fault. Regardless of whether you are or you're not, it is your fault. Let them tell you it's not your fault. If someone ever said to you as a seller, no, Ben, it's our fault. We actually, we thought we could get more. Oh my God, you have just got the seller on side. They are ready to accept. Okay? Let them tell you it's not your fault. You say it is, okay? So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what I'm about to say to you may potentially offend you, but it's going to get us one step closer to getting your home sold. Is it okay if I continue? Sure. Look, I have to apologize, first of all, because I'm guilty of trying to get you too much for the property. However, I'd rather be guilty of trying to get you too much than not enough. I was very ambitious in the beginning of this process, but I've re-educated myself based on the feedback that we've got and also some other new comparables that didn't come up last time that we were looking at yours. This is what I've found, and I think we need to readjust our list price, or we need to readjust your expectations. Pretty great way to get involved into a conversation about your expectations is too high, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. You need to adjust them. That's the way that you can go about it. The next approach, remember, you pre-frame it. We can put things into perspective for the sellers. We sometimes have to be direct. The seller's financial position is no one else's responsibility. And what will you achieve? Okay. So let me take you through this in a little bit more in-depth nature. I'm going to share with you this. I'm going to share with you your work booklet because that is where all of the detail for this is. Okay. Excuse me a second as I bring that up. Okay, so everything that I've just taken you through from a theory standpoint is adjusting the seller's expectations is here on page 78, and how you're supposed to do that. Setting up the conversation and pre-framing it is an important thing to do. Then you've got the fall on the sword approach. Here's that script there in the middle of page 79. I must apologize as I think that I'm guilty of trying to get you too much for your property. However, I'd rather be guilty of trying to get you too much than not enough. I was very ambitious when we began this process and I've re-educated myself, and this is what I've found. Okay. The next thing is putting things into perspective for the sellers. Now, you might be in a situation where you've got an offer prior to auction, you've got an offer on auction day, whatever it may be. This is the language I'll be having with them. Guys, the hard part about my job is having tough conversations with good people, and this is probably likely to be one of those times. The thing that I'm not understanding completely is that you're saying no to an offer of $530,000 at the hope that we can find someone to pay $550,000. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so you're basically gambling $530,000 at the hope that you can make $20,000. A less than 4% return doesn't seem like a smart decision to make. And that's even if we can duplicate or get more money. Then asking them a question, what would you do with the extra $20,000 that you make? Now, folks, this is going to be a simple thing. They're going to come back to you in this sense. Well, we get to leave here debt-free, or we need it to buy another home, or I've got student loans, or I've got car debt, I've got this, I've got that, I've got that. 99% of the reasons that they're going to give you are personal problems, personal reasons. Very rarely does someone say to you, because I think it's worth more. Okay? I'll be honest, very rarely do they say that. Okay? And then you can talk, if someone said that, that means they're talking logic. You could actually talk through logic. But what they give you most of the time is personal issues that then you've got to subtly point out that with all due respect, that is no one else's issue, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Not that harsh, obviously. One of the things that I like, and this is where you get to the burning end of the relationship, where you think this is not coming together, I'm going to have to take some drastic actions. The thing that I want you guys to give consideration is that everybody thinks that they're a good person, and a lot of the people that we deal with think that they're great people, and they would help somebody if they're ever in trouble or whatever it may be. But guys, I have situations every day where people believe that they're good people and they do great things and they're a good human being. But in hindsight, what they're trying to achieve with their property is actually not being a good person. They're trying to get somebody else to bail them out of a financial position that they've put themselves in based on poor decisions, only to burden that other person and pay too much money for a property that's going to harm them later on in life. That is not a good person, folks. Because they're trying to ask somebody to bail them out of a situation that they created for themselves. That's moral hazard to the nth degree. Society kicks up a stink when we do it for banks, when we do it for financial institutions, like in 2008 with all of the subprime debt that they all had, the government bailing them out of that situation. You know, the reality is that we kick off and we get frustrated, but we allow our sellers to do it on minor bases. It's horrible. Okay? Now, guys, if you're placing any comments on this stuff, I can't see them at the moment, so I'm sorry, I'll go back to them later. Either way, guys, putting things into perspective, you're saying no to 530 at the hope that you'll get $20,000 more, okay? A less than 4% return doesn't seem like a smart decision to make because you're gambling $530,000, okay? What would you do with that $20,000? Well, it would get blitzed, blah, 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 okay? So, and you've got to subtly say, well, with all due respect, that doesn't give me much power to negotiate. I can't negotiate just because ultimately I need proof in order to provide value. At the moment, you're going back and asking me to negotiate because you need to leave here in a better position than what you came here in. That's not fair. And if you were in the buyer's position, you wouldn't pay more money because of that. Next thing, okay? Next line that you can go down. Sometimes you have to be direct. This is probably one of the more cut through lines that if you've actually done what you need to, okay, in that listing and you've done everything you're supposed to, this is probably one of the more effective ones, one of the most simple, but one of the more effective. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, tough part about my job is having tough conversations with good people, and this is one of those times, okay? And the thing I'm sort of making a request of you at this time is that, look, I don't want you to accept what we've got for you right now on auction day, okay, or right now in front of you. I don't want you to accept it. But I'll be honest, you need to accept it if you're ever going to sell your home. I would have loved you to get you more, but you need to consider this if you're ever going to consider selling your property. Okay? Very simple. Next one. It kind of leads into what we were talking about before, but your position is no one else's problem. Don't ever just say that. That reads very, very metallic. However, you've got to make sure that you frame it to that extent. Mr. and Miss Seller, so you're asking me to go back and get $20,000 more from the buyers because you want da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. With all due respect, if you're in the buyer's position, I don't believe that that would be enough justification for you to pay more money. Okay? The next part is that, we'll just simply wait. We'll just wait until the market gets better. Now, guys, I'm in a position here in Southern California and Northern California and Nevada and Oregon and Washington and Hawaii and also Canada, is the fact that I know all of these marketplaces and what they're doing. You've got to look at things from a perspective. Say a seller wants $1 million, okay? Let's say a seller wants $1 million. Okay, now sorry guys, I just need to go back and refer to where we were. Those are there on the bottom of page 79, guys. 79 is what I just took you through, just so that you can see it. We are now at the top of 80. Okay, we're now at the top of page 80. All right, so what I'm saying here, let's say that a seller says to you, okay, no, I'll just wait for the market to get better and then I'll get my $1 million. What's the price difference here? It's about 8%. 8% from the public price and the feedback. But remember, we're using feedback to educate the seller. So from here to $1 million, okay, that's, 15%. When was the last time a property market jumped 15% in 12, 18 months, 2 years? It actually never has. It's gradually gone up. And in some marketplaces, it was appreciating ridiculously. But guys, the likelihood of that happening is almost as likely as as winning the lottery. So you've got to point out to the sellers is that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the decision that you're making, and this is just here in your booklet here, guys, the decision you're making is bigger than a week, bigger than 2 weeks, even bigger than a year in my eyes. I believe the decision that you're making not to accept the marketplace now is a process of probably a 2, 3, 4, 5 year expedition. Because we don't know what the market's going to be doing, because it needs to value your property 15% more. That's a huge jump. That's a massive jump. Most investments return maybe between 4 and 6% in any stable marketplace. So the thing that I'm asking you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what do you achieve? Next question. let's say that you take the property off the market and you put it back on in a year's time and things don't even change. What do you achieve by holding onto the property? Now, you might own the property, okay? Great. But ultimately, you don't know what other competition is going to be on the marketplace at that time. You don't know. You've spent money on the property to maintain it, on taxes, on running costs, all of those different things. Why wouldn't you deal within just the here and now versus waiting and playing Russian roulette with what might happen? At least you know what's going to happen right here and now. And with all due respect, predictions only come off a very small amount of the time. And you're predicting the real estate market to go up. I'm in real estate, I'm not as certain. Okay? So guys, these are the things that you need to be pointing out to your sellers. These are questions. These are thought processes. This is what you're having a conversation with them about, okay, to get them thinking about their expectations. You really don't achieve anything in the conversation there and then. The next day, after they've slept on it, after they've reviewed it, after they've thought about it, or after you bring it up with them again, that is when it'll work. Guys, is there any questions on education of sellers at all? Because it becomes a very easy process if you're doing this correctly. If you're doing this correctly, it becomes a very, very easy process indeed. Any questions, folks? I can see the chat section now. If there are no further questions, I'll keep moving on and go into the next section. Okay. So, as we move through, guys, my chat section's not working very well, so if you do have questions and I've missed it, I'm sorry. Give me a call after this and I can go through those with you. Okay, so the benefits of buying at auction, guys, I'm not going to take you through this because I've already given you all of those benefits in basically showing you the listing presentation. However, what I do want to give you is the reference to the page on page 80 in the script. But what I want to show you here as well, guys, is that on the auction website, okay, under the buying side of things, okay, that you can find, is that you can play a video here that basically takes you through a quick little script and all of those different things. It's about a 5-minute video of me explaining why buying at auction is superior to doing it traditionally through the transparency it creates and everything of that nature. Also, it'll be worthwhile you going to the auction website and going through these little snippets that actually then you can then really formulate your own pitch out of it as well. But there is a script there also, folks. But the buying page is a good resource for you to be able to learn it a little bit further. There's also this here, which is the guide to buying at auction. Outside of the video, it is the guide to buying at auction. It's an in-depth booklet that takes you through how to purchase through the auction process, guys. Okay, so it takes you through a little bit further, and it's like one of those digital booklets and all of that type of stuff. Okay, so getting back to the work booklet here, the next section that I'm going to take you through is holding buyer's interest. I'll give an example of this before I take you through this. The wonderful thing about the auction process is that it provides sellers to be human beings and make mistakes. And it also provides you as an agent that if you haven't done this quickly enough or you aren't doing it correctly, to make mistakes as well. I'll give you a case study just quickly, guys. This is the story that I repeat over and over again. Jason doesn't like it, but I think it's a pure example of holding buyers through the auction process. Let me put it to you this way. If you've got a list price on a property, okay, you've got a list price on a property, a buyer puts an offer in, whatever it ends up being, okay, and the seller says no to that or writes back a stupid counter offer, okay, that buyer is likely 80% of the time to buy something else within 48 hours. You lose them completely, okay? So let me give you an example here of holding buyers' interest through auction. Because we have a set date, an event date, the hope that they might be getting a deal, and we can keep encouraging them. We've got to keep encouraging them. Speaking to a buyer or their agent just simply once after they've come through the open house is not enough. You've got to continue communication with them and keeping them up to date and bringing them on the journey to auction day. Your job is to gather bidders, not to find the buyer. So, give an example. This represents a high-rise, an apartment building in Brisbane where I used to sell real estate. Okay, there are lots of apartments. I believe there was like, say, 170 odd apartments in this one building. I had a friend that had one of the apartments. He called me and said, hey, I need to sell this because the HOAs on the building went up that were more than his mortgage on the property. He bought the property for $475,000. Okay, he bought it for $475,000. The HOAs were normally about $500 a month. They'd gone up to about $2,500 a month. The reason why is because there was concrete cancer in the building, which starts to decay away from the concrete, and they had to re-concrete the building one section at a time without hurting the structural integrity of it. So where I'm getting to here, guys, is that when the HOA payments are higher than the mortgage payment on the property, it's pretty likely that there's going to be properties everywhere that come on the marketplace in that building. So all up, there was about 70% of all the properties that were in that building were on the marketplace, and my seller and a friend of mine actually was in a bit of financial difficulty because he was paying basically 2 mortgages in order to, keep living there. So he said to me, hey, need to sell the property. I said, no problem, we'll auction the property, not an issue at all. Now, we did 4 weeks. Those lines represent week 1, 2, 3, 4. Auction was on the Saturday of the 4th week. Week number 1 at the open house, we had 2 groups of people through, okay? And one of those people, I ended up squeezing an offer out of them. Okay, remember the follow-up process? Squeezing an offer for feedback and leverage purposes. That offer was $300K. Okay, what do you think the seller said? The answer is no. I can't see your chat, but the answer was absolutely no, to the extent that he ripped the contract up in front of me and asked me to leave in a very impolite manner. Okay, now I knew at that point, because the building was in so much trouble, that I needed to hold on to this buyer the best I possibly could. So I had this conversation with them, guys, okay? Right here, this one right here, hopefully you can see where my mouse is, okay? I had this conversation with them, right? Now I'm gonna say it a little bit differently to the way that it's written down, but it's the same sort of context, okay? Is that I said to them, guys, do you want this property? And they said to me, Ben, there's a lot of other properties on the market. I said, but do you want this one? They're like, of course, there's a few more upgrades on this one. It's got a little bit nicer view than some of the others. Yes, okay. I said, so if you can buy it for $300,000, you would buy this property. He said, oh, absolutely. Why would we put an offer in? I'm like, okay, I'm going to need you to hang in there. You've given me an offer in the first week of a 4-week process that I'm going to need that full 4 weeks in order to educate the client. Now, a couple of things could happen along the way. You could find another property that you're interested in. You could go and buy that property and your offer is then void. Okay, but what I'm looking for is the permission to continue to show your offer to the seller every week after the open houses when we're not getting other offers, and I just want an opportunity for them to see the marketplace and give them further education of the marketplace. Could you do that? Sure. Now, the thing that I clarified with them as well, they wouldn't pay any more money, and nor should they. Like, there were so many other options in that building that they could have bought, okay? However, $300,000, they said to me, okay, all right, fine. I said, look, I'm going to stay in contact with you a couple of times a week, let you know what's going on. If another offer does come in before auction, I will have to let you know, okay? I can't let you know what that offer is, nor would I let them know what your offer is, but I'll keep you up to date along the way, and I'll present your offer every week to the sellers, but we'll stay in touch along the way, okay? They're like, no problem's fine. So I was calling them and letting them know, and I'll show you in the next little bit what I was saying to them. Either way, the next open house on that Saturday, we had 0, okay? What did I do? I represented the $300,000 offer to him. And he threw it in the trash and goes, stop showing me that shit. I'm not accepting 300. Like, hey, look, I'm just showing you what the marketplace is saying. We didn't have anyone through the open house. I don't do real estate by magic, okay? I've got you somebody interested. No one else in the building has anyone else interested in the property, okay? He's like, all right, just keep going. I'm not selling it for 300. All right. 3rd week, I had 1 group through, okay? The open house. Went back to him. They were not interested. I went back to him, represented the 300, and he looked at me and he goes, Ben, look, have you ever lost $170,000 on a property, $175,000? And I said, no. And he goes, and I said, look, I'm going to say something that's going to likely to piss you off, is that it's more than 175 that you'll lose because you've got to pay my commission as well. And he's like, well, just keep digging the knife in, but I can't come to taking that at the moment. I said, all right, okay, no problems. I said, but I don't know what I'm going to do for you. Anyway, got to Thursday. The buyers are still there. They're hanging in. I call him. I said, look, so auction's approaching this weekend. I don't have anyone else but these buyers at 300. And he said, look, I had to go and see the accountant, you know, and he's told me that I definitely need to accept this. I can't afford to keep holding it, and I definitely don't want to, you know, lose the property. So I'll take it, okay? But he's like, is there any chance someone else could turn up on auction day and bid more? I said, let me tell you what auction's going to look like. Ladies and gentlemen, opening bidder, opening offer, 300,000. Great. I'm going to pause quickly and refer it to the sellers because there's no one else interested. Take this now, and I might be able to squeeze them a little bit harder with the leverage of auction day approaching. He's like, okay, I got an extra $10,000 out of them to do the deal, okay, which paid kind of for my commission because there's only listing side. But either way, guys, can you see that if I told that buyer no, okay, and went with what the seller told me, that seller would have made an incredible mistake and would have probably likely lost the property, okay? So guys, this is an opportunity auction for your sellers to be human, for your sellers to make mistakes, and also allows you to make mistakes as well and hold on to buyers. Because an offer that a seller says no to in the first week, they usually regret that, okay, later on. But with auction, because it's an actual event, you can hold on to them. Let's go through some of the things that you can say and that you can continue to be in touch with their agent or that buyer. Ring, ring, ring. Okay, just up the top here. Hey, I'm calling you because you're my number one buyer at this point. And this could end up with you in a great house come auction day. Now, they are your number one buyer because you're on the phone to them right then and there. Okay, so guys, you're just feeding the greed. Remember, feed the greed. Gather bidders. Okay, next one. Look, the seller's expectations have been readjusted after our weekly review meeting, and you are in with a great chance come auction day. Guys, after my weekly review meetings with the seller, I'd always go back, and regardless of their expectations changing to be up or down, most of the time it was down, okay, or they're making a little bit of a compromise, I'd let people know that, okay? Next one. What do you think would be a great price, in your opinion, to buy the property for? Oh, $400,000. Okay, well, you need to register to bid for the auction, okay? Because if I called you and told you after auction this property sold for $400,000, wouldn't you be disappointed? Yeah, let's get you registered. Let's see what happens. Guys, what a buyer will do prior to auction versus what they do at auction in that competition, I promise you they will pay more. Okay? Next one. I need you to read between the lines. Okay? This could be one of the best buys in the area this year. What does that even mean? It means absolutely nothing. But I need you to read between the lines here. I'm calling you for a reason. It could be one of the best buys in the area this year. Your job is to gather bidders, folks. Get them there. Get the market there. Okay? Next one. Out of interest, if someone put an offer in on the property prior to auction, would you like to know? Oh, yes, we would. Great, excellent. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, just a reason to give them a call and stay in touch, okay, and see what their level of interest is like. Okay? So just some things that we can use in order to hold those buyers in, because auction, the beautiful thing about the process is it allows your sellers to make mistakes and we can educate them through, and that offer is still there at the end. Now guys, it's a hard thing to do. It's not always going to happen, but you can mitigate that, because the next script, like I did to them, is that, hey, a no now does not mean a no on auction day, guys. It's early on. I just need a little bit more time to give them better education on the marketplace. A no now does not mean no on auction day. All right? Hopefully you guys can grasp that and understand it. Folks, what we're going to do now, I know that we've only just had a quick break at 11:30. We're going to take another little 10-minute break while Callista just sets up for my auction, okay? And then she's going to power us through to lunch. Okay, and then I'm going to come back and round out the day after lunch. We'll probably aim for lunch to be somewhere along the lines of about 1 o'clock, guys. Okay, but we'll take a quick little 10-minute break now to 1:15. Callista may need to run over a little bit more of 1 o'clock, but either way, I'll put it in her capable hands. So we're going to be back here at 12:15, so 12:15. 12:15, please be here. We'll ask you to type your name in as I just go over and hand over to Callista to start my auction. Guys, back here at 12:15, please.
I'll try and get through this as quick as possible for you. We normally do this section on the first day. Apologies, I just got back from Australia this morning from getting my visa, so there is a bit of delay on that. But I'm sure Ben gave you plenty of content in the meantime. Okay, so we're going to run through kind of like a couple of backward steps for you, but essentially once the seller says yes, that they want to auction their property and they want to use that method of marketing, then what do we need to organize on the back end and a few little logistics of that type of thing. So the first thing is the list price and the bidding to start from price. I'm sure Ben has kind of touched on this. This is something we need to determine with the seller and you with the auction team, what that list price or bidding to start price is going to be. So this is the list, this is the price that we'll be putting in the MLS, and it's also advertised to all the public, and this is the only price that gets advertised to any buyers and any agents. Now guys, I can see the chat, so if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and I can answer those. All right, so the most common question we'll get is that how do we calculate the bidding to start from price? How do you determine the bidding to start from price? There is no hard and fast rule about how to determine the bidding to start from price, okay? So we have had properties being listed for, say, 10% under what the seller's looking for, to properties that have been listed 40 to 50% under what the seller is looking for. So there's no hard and fast rule. The important thing to remember is that it really just needs to look like a bargain and like a deal in the marketplace, okay? So that's a process where you'll get together with the auction team, look at what's on the market in the surrounding area to make the property stand out. Other things you might look at is if the property's been listed before, the type of area it is, and again, the other properties on the market. Another thing specific to auction is the seller's reserve or expectation price, and this is protected within the auction process, okay? So the reserve price or the expectation price we use interchangeably, but this is really just what the seller's hoping to sell their property for, okay? This amount that they're hoping to sell their property for is a confidential price, okay? So the only people that know this price is the listing agent and the auction team, okay? So it's important throughout the process, as Ben would have gone through, that we protect this reserve price and that it does stay confidential. And it's important to know by sellers that this price can be adjusted at any time throughout the campaign, okay? So even at the start of auction listings, we encourage sellers, as you'll see on the listing documentation, to overinflate their reserve price on the listing documentation so that they know that they are protected. But at the end of the day, they can reduce this expectation or increase it as they can a traditional listing as well, all right? The auction date is also something we need to decide. So the auction date builds urgency, all right? That's our, as Ben describes it, that's our Christmas day. That's our deadline on the day. All of our auction events are preset for the year, okay? So this one is just flipped at the moment, okay? So our San Diego venue is the first Thursday and our Orange County venue is the third Thursday, all right? So we have 2 auctions a month on the Thursdays every second week. We have auctions, we have properties from all over North America within each of those events. With our streaming capabilities now, it really doesn't matter where your property is located. It can go in either event, all right? We've even, the number of times we've had San Diego properties, even Del Mar properties at our Del Mar event, and yet we still get bidders phoning in or sending absentee bidders or bidding via the app. So really, that's been something that has been taking off really well and being received really well. But anyway, there are 2 auction dates. So a first Thursday and then the third Thursday of the month. So when you list a property for auction, you really want a minimum of 3 weeks campaign leading up to the auction date. Now we're going to look at kind of what that calendar looks like, but essentially once you go live on the market, you then want 3 weeks of advertising and open houses before the auction date. And then there's another date we need to be aware of is the MLS live date, okay? So as I mentioned, once we go live on the market, that's when you want 3 weeks to the auction date. But once you take the listing, you have a number of things to organize, including reports and disclosures. So let's jump across here and we'll have a look at a quick timeline. So for example, so we've got the listing agreement signed. We've got the listing agreement signed first, and then as soon as possible, you want to let us as the auction team Also, guys, the booklet is not super accurate, okay, with our new system, with my auction. That will take care of a lot of the material in the book. I'm sorry, I know Ben follows the book religiously, but really mostly what I'm saying will be represented on the slides as well. So as soon as possible after you sign the listing agreement, you want to book the auction, all right? And I'm going to show you what that involves, but essentially that's getting onto our in-house system, letting us know your property address, and going through the process there. Once you book the auction with us, you have roughly, it normally takes around 7 to 10 days to organize the disclosures and reports, and we're going to have a look at what they look like. This can take more sometimes, and sometimes this can take less. If you get everything done in 3 or 4 days, awesome, that's great. If it does take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then that's fine also, but they're just timelines we need to be aware of. During that period of time, the property is not being marketed, okay? So from the time that you have the listing agreement signed, and you're organizing all the disclosure and reports, the property is withheld from the market until we have all the material that's required. Then we have our MLS live date, so that's when we go active for all public marketing. And then we have that 3 to 5 weeks to auction date. If we have an auction date that's any further out than that 5 weeks, we're really losing the momentum and the competition that auction date brings, all right? So we can always, as Ben will go through, postpone the auction or amend the auction date. But we really want to keep that campaign for that 3 to 5 weeks, and really no longer than that 5 weeks, or else our buyers will start looking elsewhere because that date of auction is just too far away. So again, as we just mentioned, all the reports and disclosures are traditionally completed in escrow or when the property is under contract. For auctions are completed prior to listing the property for sale, okay? So all those things such as seller property questionnaires, any local area disclosures, prelim report, home inspection, termite inspection, NHD report in California, that's all ordered and completed up front and provided in a disclosure package to our buyers. So for example, here's a quick view of what the reports would look like. At the top, we've got the prelim report, we've got home inspection, termite inspection, NHD for California, professional photography, CC&Rs, and admin fees. So that I included on one page because people normally will say, well, what's the cost for auction? Guys, that is the costs up front to the seller for auction. So prelim report, obviously there's nothing on that to order the prelim report. The main fees normally up front are the home inspection, guys, and the admin fee to Harcourt's auctions. Okay, so most places for termite, that's a free report. If not, then it's around that $75 to $100. The natural hazard is in escrow, that fee for that. So the fee for to conduct an auction property for a seller is normally really that home inspection cost plus the admin fee to Harcourt's auctions. As I know, the professional photography, you guys as agents normally take care of that. So expanding on for one, the admin fee. The admin fee is a $250 fee payable to us as the auction team prior to the property being listed, okay? So this is a non-refundable fee. It's just a flat-out fee, all right, that comes to the auction team. You'll see, I'll give you a little example of the box we provide, the printing we provide, the brochures, and then that goes towards getting the property on the website as well. All right, so that needs to be paid by the seller or the agent prior to listing live as an auction. We encourage the seller to pay these costs, okay? So the home inspection and the admin fee is really fees that the seller should be incurring. We need to make sure that they have some type of hurt in the game, all right, and they have opened their wallets to some degree. The conversations and scripts around getting the seller to pay for this, John, Jason can absolutely help you talking with the seller, talking through the benefits of why they should be paying these fees and that type of thing, all right? Only very few agents out of all of our auction agents pay the admin fee for the sellers. Basically, all agents get this fee out of their sellers. And guys, it's only $250. Other auction companies charge in excess of thousands and thousands of dollars, okay? So it is a minimal fee, and it is just to go to cover costs. So they're the types of reports that need to be ordered. Next are the disclosures. So right now we're looking at a California list. So you guys in Hawaii, Oregon, and Canada, don't freak out. You guys' list is nowhere near this long. Okay, so that's a California list. You will get this list when you book your property for auction. You'll get an automated list based on the up-to-date disclosures required at that time. And I'll show you what that looks like as we go ahead. But just an example, this is normally a packet that is that's all normally signed in escrow. We just get this signed up front. In California, you guys, we work with your TCs as well. We've basically worked with all TCs within Harcourts, and they have done auction properties before. So they'll be a great asset to you. So don't get too worried about that type of situation, provided you know you just have to order your home inspection and termite. Next, for example, see Oregon, we're looking at a lot less here, all right, guys? All right, so that's kind of what the disclosures and reports look like. The next is 2.5% must be advertised in the MLS and offered to all buyers representation. All right, so because we don't want any excuse for buyers representation not to be showing our property, we do require the standard 2.5% offered to all buyers reps. Now that doesn't mean that the buyer's agent must get 2.5% when the deal's done and the negotiations organized, but it must be offered. We have never offered less than 2.5%, so please, if you are swapping a property over from traditional to auction, please remember to adjust and make sure the 2.5% is built in. If you do come to us with a listing and say, oh, sorry, it's only 2, I'm just going to do 2%, we're going to say, no, thanks, we don't want your property, all right? Next, the photography must be professional and high resolution photography. I again can't believe that I ever have to continue to say this, and I sound so silly and it sounds so condescending, but please make sure it's professional. We invest a lot of money into our website and into our marketing to make sure that our process does not look distressed. Please make sure that you're also investing in that. This is your guys' process. This is your platform as well. So if we let one property slip and have bad photography for one property, next minute we've got 70 properties up there with bad photography. If you have a vacant land or a tear down property, we still want good photography, all right? We still want aerial shots and local area shots. So get the drone out, get some photography, get some local area shots with your photographer. Again, please don't send us a vacant land and say, oh yeah, I've only got 3 photos that I took with my iPhone. We're going to say, no, thank you. If you're not going to invest in this property, then we're not going to waste our time with it. On that, the photography does need to be a minimum of 15 photos. When we do our live events, we require the 15 photos to create the video. But that's normally not an issue. If you're using professional photographers, it's normally about the standard photography anyway. Next, we're going to go in a little bit to more, we're going to go into more detail in a moment on this, but just to get this out of the way up front, the auction fee is 0.5% of the sale price with a minimum fee of 2.5% paid from the listing agent's commission. All right, we're going to dive into this a little bit more later to make it clear, but basically the auction team only gets paid if the property sells, but they do get paid if the property sells before auction, on auction day, or within 60 days after. 2,500 is the minimum. So if you are listing a property which is likely to sell under 500,000, okay, so if you're listing a property and maybe it's going to sell at 450,000, or it might sell at 480,000, the minimum fee, anything that sells under 500,000, is 2,500. If the property sells in excess of 500,000, then the fee is 0.5% of that sale price, okay? And it comes from the listing agent's commission. So important if you are, again, swapping a property from traditional to auction, that you do have the commission built in there if the property does sell through the auction process, 0.5% to pay the auction fee. We're going to circle back on that. We're going to circle back on that again soon, but just wanted to get that way up front. As we discussed briefly before, all auction listings must pay the $250 admin fee. Open houses. I'm sure Ben would have touched on this when he talked about open houses, but they're a maximum of 2 hours each open house and must be conducted by the listing agent. So we have guys, multiple agents now conducting half an hour open houses, okay? So 2 hours is the maximum. We need to make sure that we're keeping the competition up through the open houses. If the agent's sitting there for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time, then the buyers coming through think they have control. They don't see anyone else interested in the property. They think they can just take their time and look at 15 other properties and then maybe make a decision on ours, okay? If we keep it competitive and short, it's going to look more attractive in the marketplace. So on that, the open houses build competition. So again, they must be conducted by the listing agent. I'm sure Ben touched on this, but the seller's hired you and you've convinced them that the auction process is great, that there's a high level of accountability. You're going to have to be educating the seller, communicating with buyers. If you cannot personally do the open houses, we ask that you don't list a property for auction, okay? The only issues we've ever had with auction properties is when agents don't do their open houses. We find out that they've had someone else from their office do their open houses. And guys, then at that point, they're only interested in getting buyers, okay? That person that you have sitting at your open house is only interested in getting a buyer. So it's really important that you are doing your own open houses. And again, auction's a lot of work. So if this is just not something that you're going to put the time and effort into it, totally respect that. It's not for everyone, but open houses do need to be done by the listing agent. Needs to be done by the listing agent or a co-listing agent, someone who is earning commission from selling the property, not getting a buyer, from selling the property. All right, so disclosure and reports show our transparency. The list price and bidding to start from price attracts attention. The seller's expectation price is protected through the auction process. The auction date builds urgency and open houses build competition. So they're like the 5 differentiating factors of an auction versus that traditional method, which we really play on. So now I have a listing for auction. Now what? All right. So you would sign your standard residential listing agreement as you normally would, okay? So in whatever state you're in, whatever listing agreement you would normally sign for a traditional listing, you go ahead and sign this listing agreement. The only difference is that you would write language to this that looks similar to this, all right? So your list price would be the bidding to start from price that you decide on. And under listing terms, you would say, as per Harcourt's agreement to employ auctioneer and Harcourt's auctions terms and conditions, with the final sale price remaining the decision of the seller. If you already have a traditional listing and you're swapping to auction, you can just get an addendum to this effect that displays these terms. If you're signing something up for auction, this is something you can text, call, email. We'll be able to provide you with this. Also, most OAs, if not all OAs, can give you this language for your listing agreement. The next thing you want to make sure you get signed is the relevant form in your state, but essentially the seller's agreeing to exclude the property from the MLS for a certain period of time. All right, so when you sign the listing agreement, you have a date on the listing agreement, and per each state terms, you have so many days or so many hours to put the property on the MLS, and if you don't, then your days on market are going to count from your listing agreement. So this is really important because when we are organizing those disclosures and reports, there could be up to 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks of time collecting disclosures and reports. And if we're off the market, you don't want to then go put it on the MLS and then you've got a days on market instantly as those 3 weeks. So keep that in mind. Next thing you want to do is jump on our auction listing system called My Auction, all right, and book the auction. So let's jump on and take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so you can see my screen now. So this is what My Auction looks like. Now each agent will have their own account, okay, and that's created by the auction team, but each agent will have their own account. When you log in as an agent, you will just see properties that are that are associated with your username, okay? So at the moment I'm admin, so I can see all the properties that we're currently got booked, and then all the properties that we have active and that type of thing. So you'll only see the ones that belong to you. Your first step will be go to this left-hand corner and click Add Booking. So I'm just going to make this bigger for the purposes of your screen. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and say Add Booking. So under Listing Agent, you can see that it's selected Super Admin because that's my name as a listing agent. You can go ahead and add a secondary listing agent if you're working with someone. Okay, go ahead and add any of the guys, any agent that you're working with, they will pop up underneath. If you're not working with a secondary listing agent, just leave that blank. Next, you want to go ahead and write your booking address in, okay? So I'm just going to say 123 Test Street, Laguna Niguel. I'm going to cross off that there. Okay, then the event type, drop down for event, click event, and then that'll give you the upcoming auction dates here, okay? So you can see these upcoming auction dates. So I'm going to go ahead and just select an auction date now. No hard and fast, we can just kind of select something that you think might work for you. Today is the 4th of March, so that's a little close for me. I'm going to look at, say, the... what am I going to look at? April 16th. Scroll down here. Oh, did it just go away? Okay, and then I'm going to press continue. Once I press continue, it's going to pop me into a second screen and ask me for more details here. So I'm just going to pop out into another one I slightly prepared earlier. All right, so this is the second screen that it popped me out to enter the information in. So at the top we've got, it's asking for seller's details, okay? So the seller's name, seller's email, seller's phone. So I'm just gonna go ahead and write a fake seller's email in here, obviously. Okay, one seller or two sellers. Make sure this name, the seller's name, is the seller's name on title, okay guys? Because the documentation that will automatically generate. The MLS live date, so the date that you're hoping to go active on the MLS, it'll automatically populate 7 days from today's date. If you need extra time, go ahead and pop this in here, and I think I might need extra time, so I'm just going to say I'm going to go live on the 16th, all right, on the Monday. Bidders registration deadline, that's just a read-only part, guys, and I'll show you what that relates to when we go through the bidding registration. Next is the starting bid price, so go ahead and write whatever that starting bid price is. That you've decided on with yourself or Jason and John. Deposit amount and reserve price. So again, we discussed the reserve price, what the seller's hoping to achieve. And then the deposit amount is normally around that 3 to 5% of the bidding to start from price, okay? We've got HeidiBot in this right-hand corner. You can go ahead and ask HeidiBot questions. So for example, what is the deposit? It's a common question. And HeidiBot will tell you the deposit specific for each property, normally approximately 3 to 5% of the bidding start from price. Okay, so I just went ahead and put $15,000 for that auction property. Next up, the escrow company. I've just gone ahead and made up my escrow company as Harcourt's Escrow, representative name and their email. Next, the title company is automatically populated. This is not updated, but the current guys that we're working with in California is Landwood Title. So depending on what state you're in, you will have a different view on this screen, okay? So Oregon, for example, escrow title, one and the same. So you have a different view based on what region you come from here. NHD is automatically populated with Snap NHD, and I'll show you how that gets ordered. Home warranty, we ask you to enter a home warranty company. If the property is purchased at auction, we do require that the seller offers home warranty to the buyer. If you're unsure of that yet, go ahead and write TBD, write 0 here. What this information does will help us populate the purchase contracts, okay? But if this can be changed anytime prior to or on auction day to help generate that documentation. So if you don't know, if there's not someone you normally work with, just go ahead and write TBD. Next, the HOA. We're asking if there's an HOA on the property. So I'm going to drop down and say yes. We're asking if there's Melloroos on the property. No. And then what type of property it is. Okay, so this will determine what disclosures and reports are required on the property. So obviously a single family home is a lot different to a land and that type of thing, all right? So single family home. Next down here is occupancy. Okay, so if the seller lives in it, or if it's vacant, or if it's tenant. For example, if it is tenanted, this will give the auction team a good heads up, John and Jason, that they will need to work with you on open houses, etc. But I'm just saying the seller lives in this one. And then the auction listing agreement, okay? So you've had your listing agreement signed, but there's also an auction listing agreement portion, and we're asking whether you would like us to send this to your seller and you via DocuSign, or whether you would just like to download a PDF copy and get that signed yourself. So you have the option of just downloading the PDF or option of us sending it via DocuSign. Next down here, seller on our email communication trail. You really want to be selecting yes. If you do select no, we'll just be wondering why. And I'm going to show you what that communication trail looks like. Pretty impressive. We do like it. You can write any comments or remarks in here. So for example, if you're getting staging, just giving us a heads up, you could say home inspection already done. Just giving a heads up on the timeline, okay? Or MLS live date might be delayed, anything like that you think might be beneficial for us. Go ahead and press save. And then you'll see on the left-hand side, I still have a little red toggle, which shows me there's outstanding fields on the open house tab, okay? So I'm gonna jump across there. Now we do need 2 open houses to book the auction property, okay? So this knows what timeline you're working towards. So you'll notice I selected the 16th as my MLS live date. So I can't put any open houses before the 16th, obviously. So I'm gonna make my first one on a Friday afternoon. Okay. And then I'll click Save Open House. And then you'll see the little toggles on the left-hand side disappeared, my little red marks, and a Submit for Review has popped up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I'm happy with all that information. Now I want the auction team to start doing what they need to, and I want to start organizing disclosures and reports. So I'm going to say Submit for Review. At that point, Heidi gets notified of the booking, and so does the auction team, so we can review that. And then what normally appears here is the reports and disclosures. So let me just jump into something else. Might need a little refresh. Let's just go ahead and jump in this one. So, okay, so for example, the reports and your list of disclosures and reports will then pop up on the left-hand side when you submit that for review. So based on your property and based on your region, it will then give you a list of disclosures that you are required to organize for this property, and then again a list of reports that you are required to organize for the property. It will also send you an email with that list, okay? So you do know, you and your TC will know what needs to be organized. The way you upload them is a simple drag and drop, all right? So you can go and drop a document in here. Let me go and find something. So I'm uploading a document here. I'm going to pretend like this has my home inspection and termite all in one. I'm going to go ahead and upload that. Okay, and then it will then show you down below that those 2 have been uploaded, all right? It's changed the status. So those blue lists down there is just your list, and then this is where you upload things up the top. So now this isn't our property. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And likewise, if you do upload anything mistakenly, you can just go and delete that on the right hand side. And again, it will adjust the status to say pending upload. So if you're in Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Canada, you'll have a different list of disclosures, and fortunately there are a lot less. All right. So you've got disclosures, reports. Next, you've got photography. So it's a drag and drop ability for photography. So let's go and check that out. Let's see where I saved my photography. So we recently bought a PC, and the whole office was operating on Macs. And now things are clearly hard to find. Okay, so I can't find it in here, so I'm just going to go and drag and drop it. So these are all my photos in here. I'm just going to go select all, and then just drag them in here. I don't even know if they... Just give this a hot minute. And then all the photography will show up in that, in here, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm thinking my photos on my desktop weren't downloaded properly, so I'll just show you a quick look. You can add to the open houses, all right, add more open houses, and these will feed onto the auction website. So that's really how you let us know what the property is listed. And then on that, once you submit it for review, we check it out, approve it. You'll then get an approval booking confirmation, okay? So it's an email. I know this is a little difficult to see, but basically it gives you an idea of, hey, thanks for listing your property for auction. These are all the details about your auction property. These are a list of disclosures and reports you need to organize. That's an email you get, and also your TC or your OA, or if you're working with a personal assistant, they'll be attached to your account. They'll also get an update of those disclosures and reports as we kind of went through. Important things to know, guys, just as like priority if you're listing an auction property. The important things to organize as soon as possible is like photography, home inspection, termite, and then CC&Rs if there are on the property, but these are normally automatically ordered with the prelim report, okay? But they're the things that can take up the most time booking in other people's schedule. Once it's approved, we also send an email to the seller, all right? They get a basically, we're pleased to meet you, and that's a part of our email communication that goes out to the seller, CCing you as well. It's all super vague, but showing the seller that you have a team behind you helping you. At the same time, a listing agreement, if you select a DocuSign, also goes out. And we're going to take a look at what that looks like. If you ask for it, download PDF, I'll show you where to find that as well. And then we'll look at what that agreement looks like. So I'm just going to jump back into... Okay, cool. So once your property's been approved, under this Documents tab, all right? See under this Documents tab, when I click on that, it'll show a list of generated documents for that property. Make this a little bigger for you. And at the top you can see there's a DocuSign agreement. So obviously this agent selected the agreement to be sent by DocuSign to their seller. But additionally, you also have a PDF download there also, all right? Just in case you're heading over to the seller's house and you want to take a printed copy, or they couldn't access the email, something like that, the listing agreement is downloadable here and downloads to your desktop. I'll open that up and we'll see what that looks like and run through it. So this is a listing agreement that gets sent to your seller and yourself. It goes ahead and automatically puts in their details that you've given us, so their names, the property address, goes through and says when the auction's going to be taking place, the date of the auction, the time. And this first agreement, which is the agreement to employ Harcourt's as auctioneer, really just lays out property address, date of auction, that we're going to be using our best efforts, that they agree to a bidding to start from price that you've given us. For example, this one is 3.250. All right, they agree to that bidding to start from price, and then it can be changed upon their approval at any point in time. Next, which I've just skipped over just so we don't give up all their secrets, is the final sale price. So you have the ability to write the final sale price of the auction property in there so the seller can see that their reserve price is protected. And then just a bunch of kind of standard attorney terms. They go ahead and sign that. Just basically showing that they're agreeing to the marketing portion of the auction marketing of their property. Next below the next page is the listing agent's consent to fund the auctioneer fee. Okay, so this is something we touched on before. I'm going to take a little bit more time to talk about this now, just so everyone understands this. The Harcourt's auction, the listing agent's responsibility for the auction fee. Okay, so one, the seller does not pay the auction fee. You as the agent pay the auction fee. All right, so it's an agreement between us and you as a listing agreement for the auction fee. The auctioneer shall be entitled to a fee of 1/2% of the sale price if the property goes into escrow on the day of before the day of auction, on the day of auction, or within 60 days after the auction date. All right. So if the property sells before auction, some people say, well, why do we have to pay if the property sells before auction? Well, isn't that an advantage, guys? And most of our auctions, plenty of them do sell prior to. So that yes, the fee still applies if the property sells prior to, and the fee still is applicable within 60 days after auction. Now, just because the property may not sell on auction date, as I'm sure Ben has gone through or will go through, that does not mean the property has failed, okay? Or that does not mean we stop working. The education that we do throughout that process should mean that we have the property competitively priced traditionally in the marketplace after auction. That fee is almost a referral fee, all right, from the work that has been put in throughout the campaign. And additionally, the auction team will continue to work with you after the auction date. We don't simply disappear. Now, is there any questions on the auction fee? That's always something I really want to make very clear. It's 0.5% from the listing agent's commission. So for example, if you have 2.5% allocated to yourself as the listing agent, then 0.5% would go to the auction fee if the property sells prior to auction day, on auction day, or within 60 days after. Any questions? Is anyone still with me? Hopefully you guys are. Okay, so if we go with auction, and we only make 2%. Well, that depends. Okay, so that depends what you have in your listing agreement, okay? If you have 3% allocated to yourself in the listing agreement outside of the 2.5%, if you have a 6% listing, 2.5% goes to the buyer rep, all right? That leaves 3.5% to you. So then that would be 0.5 to us and 3 to you. Okay, so it all depends on how it breaks down. But whatever is allocated to the listing agent, 0.5% goes to the auction team if the property sells. Okay, guys, we're not using the workbook. I don't use the workbook. Next page is the Harcourt's the bidding registration, auction terms and conditions. This is just for the seller to cite so they know that we are advertising these terms to the buyers, okay? So it's basically if a buyer is looking to bid at auction, they are agreeing to these terms, which is strictly non-contingent property, sale within, close within 30 days, that type of thing, all right? So that's what we're advertising to the buyers. The bidding registration deadline. So a bidding registration deadline means all bidders need to be registered prior to auction day. We make that 48 hours prior to auction. So normally lands on a Tuesday because the auction's on Thursday. But in March, we changed that auction date to the Wednesday. This is why this has a bidding registration deadline of the Monday. Now, with auction, that doesn't mean that we won't accept bidders up until auction day. We totally will. We just give you guys that extra bidding that extra deadline to try and encourage that competition and attention to the deadline. The buyers are agreeing they're closing on a successful bid, agreeing that they'll sign the purchase documentation, agreeing that this is the deposit that will be provided for the auction property. No refunded deposit, that type of thing. So really, there's nothing that the seller's really agreeing to in this perspective except that these are the terms that are going to be offered to buyers. All right, they go ahead and sign there. The last page is just your acknowledgement as a listing agent of the Harcourt's Auctions listing procedures. So we go through everything really that our key points within within auction. For example, all required property disclosure reports must be received by the auction team prior to going live. All open houses need to be conducted by the listing agent. No lockbox or supra. Comments and documentation will be uploaded to the MLS by the auction team. Minimum 2.5% professional photography, auction box at the open houses. So I'll show you what that looks like. So that's the auction listing agreement. All right. Now, literally, I would say majority of our agents have no idea what the listing agreement actually says. And that's totally fine. If there are any questions come up, we do talk through sellers with these questions. But honestly, there is never any issue with this documentation. If they do have a question, we'll talk them through it. Documentation has been reviewed by car attorneys, and it has been reviewed by multiple seller attorneys who have all been happy and acceptable, and we don't make any changes to it because there's just really no need to. So it's all super simple, but that's something, if sellers do have any questions, we can be there to take those on for you. So again, the seller doesn't pay the fee, the auction listing agent does. Asked if there was any questions on that. Okay, so list at 6%, 2.5% to buyer's agent, 5%, 0.5% to auction. Yep, correct. Yep, that's what I said, Casey. Perfect. All right. So that's what the listing agreement looks like. So when you go ahead, your property is approved for auction, you start collecting disclosure reports, jump down to documents. If you haven't had it sent by DocuSign, there's the PDF there. Otherwise, you can see the date and time this one was sent by DocuSign, and it gets sent to yourself and to the sellers. Additional forms down here is the administration fee, so you can download the admin fee here. So the seller can fill out their credit card information, and you can provide that to the auction team. Likewise, we can call the seller for you. You just let Heidi know, hey, can you call my seller to collect their credit card details over the phone if they prefer that. The only thing we ask is that you do tell the seller that the fee is required on an auction property. Heidi and myself have been set up a couple of times where the agent said, yeah, call my seller. And then the seller has no idea what the fee is, all right? So that's really a job for Jason or John or yourself to introduce that to the seller, okay? Heidi's is just there to call any admin type work. Other documents here, for example, one Ben was talking about is the seller summary report, which I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But other tabs on the left-hand side here, we have tasks and calendar here, all right? So let's jump into tasks. Based on any property that's booked, you'll be allocated a list of tasks based on your region. Okay, so this property was obviously booked on the 20th of January because straight away it's telling this agent to schedule home and pest inspection, schedule photography, 24-hour meeting, door knock letter to neighbors, calls, open houses tomorrow, complete seller reports, those types of things. So these are tasks here. You can go ahead and add your own tasks as well. If there's tasks that work within your business, you can go ahead and add them here. Anything that's added here or any notes that you write or attach to this, all right, you can attach any notes. They will then, I'll show you where this feeds to. I'm just going to go ahead and remove this because this is Wesley's. They'll go ahead and feed to the calendar here. So click down to calendar. You'll see you have a calendar here. Click across to the months. And then you have a download calendar button. So this will then download a Word document in a calendar format, which you can make any changes or edits and then print this out and provide this to the seller. Now it doesn't look exactly like a calendar. We do have it in that table format just to allow multiple tasks on one day, and then also allows you to easily delete things, okay? So you can easily go across and delete You can easily add any notes you want here. Okay. It automatically brings across the seller's details, the property address, and the date of the auction. And then we've got those events that populate in the calendar for you. So it gives you that like ideal calendar straight off the bat, and you can make any changes that you want. As mentioned, any tasks that you add or delete here will replicate in this calendar format. So you can easily print a calendar out and provide that to your sellers so they know what's happening on the property. Likewise, the open houses that you add here feed through to the calendar as well. And that's that calendar. And we really do encourage that you are utilizing that calendar. You're doing a lot of tasks within an auction property, so do make sure you are utilizing that calendar. Yeah, and then as mentioned, you want to start uploading those disclosures and reports, all right? Uploading them on the system. Once everything is uploaded on the system, once you have all these disclosures and reports uploaded, Heidi goes through and marks them as approved, all right? So you can change, she goes ahead and changes the status to approve to those disclosures that have been uploaded. So if ever you're wondering, what am I missing? Log on to the system and you can see what you're missing. Likewise, you'll also receive an email every day at 7 a.m. You and your TC or you and your OA will receive an email every day at 7 a.m. telling you what hasn't been uploaded on the system, okay? So anything that you haven't uploaded, it will automatically send you an email and let you know this is what you're missing. Now, when you have everything here, we've uploaded all disclosures, all reports, and the photography, that's when we're ready to go active on the MLS, right? That's when you want to go live, start marketing, get ready for your first open house. So you can go ahead, and click on this. You can say to HeidiBot, can I go live? If it's your first property you're pushing active, I'd encourage you to utilize this chatbot because it kind of walks you through the process and checks that you haven't missed anything, okay? So I'm just going to say 123 Test Street, Laguna Niguel. And then HeidiBot's going to ask me a series of questions. Have you uploaded all reports and disclosures? No, still missing one or two things, or yes? Yes, I have. All right, and it will give you a different answer. Are you 100% sure everything's uploaded? Yes, I am. All right, talk you through then. Have you or the seller paid the auction admin fee? I'm gonna say I don't know. And then she's gonna remind you where the admin fee is, that type of thing. All right. And then I'll talk you through the whole process of how to get live. If you've listed a few auction properties before, you can simply just jump on here and say, like, I have another question, I need help with something, and then just say, I want to go live on this property. Likewise, guys, you can also just email or text Heidi or call her and just say, hey, where are we at? Can we go active? All right. But that's just another process to help you through that there. What's missing? All right. Make sure that all open houses are uploaded because this feeds through to the auction website. And if you don't have open houses, then on the auction website, it'll say that there's no showings. Now, we don't feed from the MLS, okay? If we did feed from the MLS, we'd be subject to a whole bunch of restrictions, so we don't do that. It is a double entry to a degree, but we have made it as simple as possible. All right, so you've uploaded all open houses, all reports, disclosures. You want to enter the property as a partial in the MLS, all right, or a incomplete or withheld status on the MLS. From that, the auction team upload our language to the MLS, which is the same for all of our auction properties, so people know when they do look at our auction properties, they know what they can expect. Then the auction team will then give you an approved to go live email. They'll give you an approved to go live. So after we've done our auction website, we've done the MLS, we've received everything, we will then give you approval to go live. You cannot start marketing a property until we give you an approval to go live. Please don't go ahead and post the property on the MLS prior to receiving this approval because you will get in trouble from CAR, we will get in trouble from CAR or the relative state MLS, okay? So this is really important. You cannot go live until it's approved by the auction team. And then you can go ahead and make the property live on the MLS, and then we'll go do such things as create your brochure, create your auction box, and queue the property in social media, and I'll show you what that looks like. But I just have a question. KS, how does it look on the MLS? How does the listing look on the MLS? The listing looks exactly the same way any other traditional listing would look. The only difference is, for example, in the public remarks, we always started off with live auction or luxury live auction bidding to start from, say, $2 million, followed by the property description. The real meatiness is added in the agent remarks and the private remarks. Okay, in that there we add a URL link that will link agents directly to the auction website where they can download the disclosures and reports and register bid and all that type of information. And we also upload a document in the supplements, which explains that buyers can purchase prior to auction, and this is how they do it. This is what an Harcourt's auction property looks like, that type of thing. We also encourage agents to, especially creating an account in like Zillow. All right, so once the property goes live, if you have an account in these with these public websites, and it doesn't need to be like a paid for Premier, if you've just created an account as an agent and your property's linked to your account, you can jump in the back end and update the language used in these public websites. So for example, the MLS restricts what we can write in the descriptions, right? So we can't go ahead and put a URL link to the auction website or provide any information about the auction in the public remarks. But if you log on to like Zillow and enter that information directly up to that public website, you can go ahead and you have a lot more flexibility in that type of language you can use. So that's just something to consider. But all the information in the agent remarks basically starts with live auction bidding start from, auction date, how they can purchase prior to auction, all disclosure reports have been completed, and then they can go to the auction website. So every auction property will be allocated a tiny URL link. So I'm going to show you what that looks like quickly. So all auction properties will have a tiny URL. It will normally start with the first few letters of their property address, followed by the street address. So this is www.tinyurl/9459 Beverly. All right. So if my property is 123 Smith Street, my tiny URL will be tinyurl.com/123 Smith. All right. And likewise on here on the details, you can go and add your bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, and property description, and this feeds through to the auction website. Scrolling down, you'll see, so this agent's picture is fed through the big details about the property, where the property is located, their open house times, and then you can go and download the app, or you can download these disclosure docs. So I'm going to go ahead and download. So I'm going to enter my name. Now Michael's going to get an email as soon as I do this. So I'm just going to write test so he knows I'm not someone looking to buy his property. So this email, this website is on the property, all the property brochures we make for you, and on the MLS. So this is where you'll get a great deal of lead generation from. Now I'm downloading the disclosures and reports on this property. So anything you upload to my auction, will feed across to the website, except for confidential documents. Okay, so listing agreements don't feed through. Credit card information doesn't feed through, nothing like that. But anything outside of that that's not confidential will automatically feed through. So if you make any changes on my auction, when someone downloads it, even 30 seconds later, 2 seconds later, it will update. So you will see now the list of disclosures and reports available on this property, all right? So we've got like the seller property questionnaire, we've got the NHD, agency, that type of thing. Prelim title report here, home inspection report here, termite inspection report there, and they're all available to open them up and view on the property. All right, and then so Michael, once I press download, Michael would have got an email instantly that says Callista Green has this is her email address, this is her phone number. She's downloaded the disclosure documents on your property, so he can follow up and inquire if I have any more questions. So that's kind of a runaround of how to get a property listed for sale on my auction. Does anyone have any questions about anything I've been through? No questions? All right. Well, I'm going to send you guys off to lunch, but before I do that, I'm going to need everyone to put their name down, please. What I need to be checking is that everyone who puts their name down will be approved after Ben's finished, and also I need to check that there's multiple people on here who I haven't done the pre-course work, so we're going to have to check on that as well. Yeah, so I know that what we've kind of been through here is kind of like information overload when you don't have a listing. But know that the system is a lot more advanced than the kind of process we were previously working on. So it really will guide you. And as always, the auction team's here as well. So I think Ben's going to give you guys half an hour. Let me just call him real quick. And then you guys can knock off to lunch, and he's just going to come back and finish. What time are we doing? What time for lunch? Okay, half an hour. So say 1:50, guys. So thanks for your patience. Thanks for tuning in. Just let me know if you have any questions. See you back at 1:50.
Name and office if you haven't already done so, guys. Let's get underway. One of the things that I wanted to obviously go through and finalize this afternoon, Callista probably has taken you through a little bit of the website. I just wanted to give you a quick other tutorial of that as well, so that you guys can see it and make sure that you can use it as a resource. Again, it's probably good just to reiterate it anyway, but give me just one moment as I bring it up. Okay. So the thing that I'm going to show you to do, what to do when we're going through the website, okay, I've taken my little photo or the little camera angle out of it of me so that you can see the entire website, guys. However, with this is our new website. One of the things that we've done just recently is just re-evolved it and made sure that it's a little bit more informational and you can get to the properties easier, and a few other different things that I'll take you through and I'll show you. The main page itself, just giving a little bit, boasting about 13,000 plus auctions globally, 91.6% success rate, one transparent process. This menu bar here is the opportunity for people, if they wanted to, they can click on this and move it to see all of the latest auctions that have come onto the marketplace. You can obviously view all as well and just swipe it over. A little bit more information on us, the About section. You can go to About Us and On the Market directly from that one. Success, obviously comparing the success that we've had. The history of us, giving that information. Obviously the experience, the difference being the live auction itself. Okay, and back to the About Us page. You also have the resources as they scroll down for selling a house, which takes you through to the selling page. Also buying, okay, takes you through to the buying. This here is just our brand video of Harcourt's auctions and conducting an auction process. Okay, also the links through to our Instagram and also the ability to download our Harcourt's auction bidding app. Okay, so if we were to go to the menu section here, you've got a few different things here. The auction bidding room, auction news, selling, buying, recent success, on the market, and About Us. So if we use the About Us page, obviously that's our brand, oops, excuse me, I don't know why it's doing that. Our brand video, okay, that you can play there as well. Harcourt's auctions, our mission, our vision, and just some obviously snippets of what we do and who we are. The team. Okay, myself, Jason, Callista, John, Heidi, Daniel, Shannon, Josh, Anna, Kelly, Chris, M. Okay, so doing all of those, showing the team and the power of that, and then obviously some more where you can learn more about buying and selling down the bottom. Okay, going back to the top. Sorry, I should have just went here. On the market. So guys, this is where we really had to evolve the page a little bit deeper with having as many auctions as what we currently do, okay, is that we had to evolve the factor of that we can sort by auction date, we can sort by state, by city, we can also just simply search a property as well, okay. So if you were to do that, let's use one. So type in Gates, brings it up. Okay, so that you can find that individual property, because in the old way of doing it, guys, there wasn't really a way that you could search properties. There wasn't really a way that you could search properties specifically, because at the end of the day, it was just we didn't have that many in the beginning, so to speak. So therefore, you can create a list view to sort of encompass all of the properties there as well. Okay, but going back to the grid fashion, if you were to click on one of the properties itself, okay, is that it gives you a little bit more information. You can always click on the actual property to take it into a full screen approach, so then you can flick through the photos, okay, but bringing it back down to a little bit more of a minimalist view, okay, gives you the information about the property. The buttons that we've moved from the previous website have been brought to the top, where we can register the bid and we can download the disclosures, which I'll show you shortly. Scrolling down, you've got your information as the agent, you've got the property information, you've got also the auction information here. So bidding to start from, auction date, auction time, experience, in person and online. Okay, in person is at that address, and online bidding live at 12 p.m. Okay, you can then get access to the bidding app, or you can do it on the desktop itself, and it takes you automatically through. On auction day, the entire website, wherever you are, has a banner at the top of it that flashes saying "Enter the live auction room, auctions in progress," that people can click on and go through to that. The map, obviously, and then open houses that will be conducted on the property as well, that people can go in and register to attend for those events. Now, we've got a request the showing tab. I know Callista probably went through this, but we still have it there just to generate some type of lead. We don't want to obviously do any type of private showings. We'd prefer everyone to come through the open houses, of course, but again, any type of lead inquiry then gets directed directly to you, and we want to just take advantage of any of that stuff. Then it shows similar properties based on price point that we have there as well. Learn more about buying, contact us, more on the market, okay? So take it back to the on the market page. But either way, that's the property section, the on the market. Now, that's probably the most used page on the website. The recent success is also the opportunity that you guys have as well in order to use this in order to show sellers where everything stands. Again, we don't have all of our properties loaded up here that we've been successful with, obviously, because it would just be impossible to go through. But again, sort of the similar format. If you were going to click on one, is what it is with the on the market pages for them. It tells you of bidding to start from, end price, days on market, time it sold was in auction, so in the event itself. You can expand the photos, the winning formula, the team, where it went to there, and then there's similar results based on price point and location as well. Okay, so either way, guys, that's the opportunity. You've got access through to my auction, as Callista probably pointed out. The buying and selling pages, obviously pretty straightforward, guys. The buying and selling pages, you've got a video of that buying that I showed you before that you can click on. You can go through a tab on the side here that you can quickly just make reference to that individual part of the website if you weren't scrolling through it. Okay. However, same sort of setup for the selling page as well. Okay, same video, well, not same video, a video about selling at auction is there as well. Okay, and obviously same sort of setup with giving people the information that they want in perspective to selling. Okay, so using that as an auction, as an opportunity, we're very proud of the website and the infrastructure that we've created through the auction process of my auction that feeds through to this and all of that information. So it's important that you harness my auction to the nth degree, because it is our quality control standpoint. The other thing that I am going to show you just quickly with the auction process is the bidding room. So this here. takes you through to the auction bidding room, where we've got our auctions tomorrow. You can click on that event itself and have a look at each individual property. When you click on that, they can get in contact directly through to that agent as well. Okay, on that property itself, they can register to bid online as well, or register for an account as well. But I need to show you the chronological order of the way that that's going to work. All right. Now this is accessible also on the app as well. As you can see here, there's no live stream or video of what of the auction at the moment, because up until 12 p.m. auction starts at 12 p.m. That is when you will see the video come up and you can enter the bidding room. It'll be in a different format to this, which I can show you here on the auction listing kit just quickly. So for those of you that can see it a little bit further, I might be able to zoom in here. There we go. Okay, so the auction format is a little bit different with the video of the auction itself, a property video. Okay, you can actually see the live bids in the agenda of which they were. Same with the application as well on the iPad, is you can see the live bids and where they were at, and also on the phone as well. Okay, guys, if you're asking any questions, obviously I can't see them at this point. I'll come back and reflect on those later once I've gone through this, okay, because we're just having some problem with our chat section on Zoom. Zoom is playing a funny game today. However, so again, that's the auction bidding room that you'll be able to watch it. People can go into the bidding room and just watch the auction without having to register or give it information or create a login. That's the same with the application if you download it on their phone as well. The only time they have to physically log into the app is if they were a registered bidder. Okay. All right, as if they were a registered bidder, they would then have to create a login for them to be able to bid online. Or if they don't want to bid online, guys, the other opportunity is that they could be over the phone as well. Okay, but I am going to go over to the auction listing presentation just quickly, and I am going to show you just some of the information that obviously people can register from. This is obviously in the listing presentation. This is obviously in the listing presentation stuff already that you guys have seen and I've taken you through, but it gives a very good understanding of obviously what ways that they can bid on the property and what ways that they can obviously as well participate in any way, shape or form. So the auction happens in a physical location, of course, okay. You've also got where they happen is all over North America, and where we conduct our auctions in any individual location all happen in the same location, whether that be in Orange County or San Diego. Bidders can either bid by watching it on the desktop, as I've just shown you, on an app. They can have a representative over the phone as well if they wanted to, guys. They don't necessarily need to do it through the app or the desktop, or they could actually physically come in person. Now, a little bit difficult for those properties that aren't local to where we are conducting the auctions, but in saying that, it's one of the things that that we provide is the opportunity to bid regardless of where they are, and that gives a better visualization here, guys. If I was to sort of just show you, is that they have the I don't know why it's jolting around. There we go. Okay, is that they have the opportunity that they can be wherever they want to be, watching the property, bidding over the phone or whatever it may be, by downloading the application. Now, I want to take you through the bidding registration process a little bit as well. Okay, so if we go to one of the properties on the marketplace, now Callista may or may not have mentioned this to you. I'm just trying to do one where it won't trigger somebody to do something. Anyway, that'll do. Okay, so if we go to download the disclosures, okay, Callista's probably already shown you that ultimately it downloads directly. The register bid tab, okay, is where they go in and they must obviously fill out the information here. Oh, let's just use Callista's name, that's easy. Okay, 949 632 4955. Residential address, we'll just use the office address. Okay, driver's license number. Okay, state, California. How will you be bidding? I'll be attending bidding via the phone, or I will not be attending. Let's say I won't be attending, so therefore I can submit that. And what happens in this situation, okay, is that once you click allow, okay, it then takes you through to DocuSign that then goes directly through to the bidding registration paperwork. Okay, so I click continue. This is the bidding registration paperwork that somebody would have to sign if they were ultimately looking to bid. The easiest way to consider this, guys, is that with bidding on a property is that the registration to bid paperwork is simply a negotiation before the auction itself based on the terms of which the seller would agree if they were the highest bidder. So if they want a home inspection contingency, a finance contingency, or whatever it may be, this is where they put it in, okay, which is the bidding registration paperwork, and then they would come back, then it would come to us, and then yourself as the listing agent, us and the seller would actually then make a decision on whether or not we would allow them to bid under those terms. Okay, so if in fact we do approve them to bid, okay, that means they've gone through here. Now, let's say they put all that information is obviously filled out already. They have stated here that they won't be attending, so they need to authorize a person that either will be bidding on their behalf, okay, or we would get in contact with them to talk through that a little bit further, okay. If they are attending or they're bidding via the phone, we are also adding into our paperwork bidding via the app as well, okay, which is the same as bidding not attending, or it is the same also as bidding over the phone. Now, they can nominate, obviously, whether or not they are bidding under a trust or company. They can also have their represented buyer, so buyer's agent. So if they have a buyer's agent, this is where they would put them in. Now, going through with the terms and conditions here, the terms of sale basically stipulate that you're buying the property on an as-is, where-is basis. You're comfortable paying this much as a deposit. Now, the deposit itself can be taken a few individual ways, guys. The deposit itself can be taken as a cashier's check on the day of auction, okay, where we take that off them. It can also be an arrangement if we trust that agent and that buyer and we've vetted them enough, is that they transfer the money within 24 hours to the nominated escrow, if we felt comfortable with that, of course, okay. The other thing, if we don't really trust them and we don't really know them, in order for us to allow them to bid and approve their registration once they've submitted this paperwork, we may ask that they transfer the $120,000 in this case through to the escrow, the nominated escrow's account, okay. They will receive that back if they are not the successful bidder, but it just depends on our level of trust. They can either hand over the cashier's check, transfer it within 24 hours, or if we don't trust them at all and we haven't vetted them and they don't have an agent and they're a bit strange and they've asked to bid on the property, then we would ask that they transfer the money over to the escrow account, okay, and they'd have it back within 24 hours if they were not the successful bidder. Okay, now guys, I will reflect on your questions if you're writing them in there, so just bear with me for the time being. It stipulates as well, guys, is that deposit is non-refundable. If they are the highest bidder and it is non-refundable and they cannot execute for whatever reason, they do not receive their deposit back. Now, continuing down, again, stipulating that it's non-contingent, the escrow company that has been nominated as well. This actually is probably the most important section right here, which is section O, which is the variation of terms. So if we were to just sign this document, keeping this blank, that means I've agreed to bid as is, where is, no contingencies, done. Okay? Now, if I go in here and I say close date, I want 60 days instead of the advertised 30 days that we've been asking for. Excuse me, I can't even spell days. Okay, finance or appraisal. Okay, you might ask for a 14-day finance term. Right, and other variances, you can put whatever. They can put whatever they really want there. So, whatever it is, okay? Now, again, I probably spelled half of that wrong. However, guys, this here, then that means that they want a 60-day variation for closing. They want a 14-day finance term, and they're contingent to the sale of a property, right? They would then sign off on it, okay, and say, my name's Callista Green, I've signed off that I want to bid on this property under those terms. Then that generates an email that gets sent to the auction team and you, and then we would collectively make a decision based on the other interests that we have on the property, whether or not we would like them to bid. So for example, if we had another buyer that was a 30-day close and they didn't have financing, they weren't contingent to the sale of a property, we need to make a collective decision. Do we let these people bid against them, or do we not? Now, sometimes we might let somebody bid against a buyer that's better just to drive them up as much as we possibly can. Other times we don't want to confuse the situation, so we probably wouldn't let these people bid under those terms. So we would go back to them and say, guys, you have not been approved to bid with a 14-day finance term or contingent to the sale of property. We're okay with 60-day close, but you would need to remove the finance term. And we might be open to the contingency of selling your property if we can see the property or we sell the property for you. Okay, we might try to start the negotiation. Remember, the registration to bid is just negotiating the terms. Auction day is focused on just the agreement of a price. Okay, we've negotiated the terms already. Auction day is focused on the agreement of a price. Now, that's not to say that in the middle of the auction they might want to change their terms or remove some terms to become more attractive. That's fine. That can all happen on the day of auction. In the auction negotiation, it's actual self. Okay, in the auction negotiation, it's actual self. So guys, I'm happy for you guys to go through and register to bid on any of those properties if you wanted to go through that process as well, just to get a better understanding of it. But it's a very clear and straightforward process to register to bid. It's very simple. Now, most of the people that register to bid are likely to put offers in on the property before auction. Some of them actually stipulate in the variance of terms as per written offer. Okay, as per written offer, so that their offer is the same terms as what their offer was previously. The only thing that varies is actually the price. Okay, sometimes we get bidders or buyers that say, well, I'm not going to offer anymore. Well, that's fine. We still want to register them for the auction to give them an opportunity to display their highest bid at auction, because if we can sell it to them under the auction terms and conditions, it's far cleaner than letting it go through as a traditional transaction. Not to mention as well, it's a better public result for you also. Okay, so I'm going to take you through again just from a perspective of getting people, auction day itself and how that might actually work. To give you a better understanding of it. But the thing that you guys need to do is stay a little bit detached from auction day itself. Your job, as well as the auction team's job, is to get the property to auction day and that time at 12 o'clock, getting everyone registered that you possibly can for the auction. Okay, now Callista stipulates that there is a 48-hour to 24-hour deadline to register before the auction. That is just a deadline put out there in order to provoke people to get it done by a certain time. That's not to say we wouldn't take a registration right up until, that 12 o'clock mark on the day of auction. We would prefer not to, because we want to know who they are and we want to make sure they're vetted, but we will make sure, in the best interest of getting the most amount of money for the property, that we go through that. Okay, so taking you back through to the Auction Essentials booklet and showing you where all of this information is, guys, so that then you can put it in a bit more of a tangible format. Just bear with me 1 second, excuse me. Okay. So right now we are on page 85. Okay, the register to bid section is there for you guys to look through. Unable to attend the auction, it goes through those individual situations as well. On 85, like I've already mentioned, purchase by a company or trust, terms and conditions, which I took you through. The variation of auction terms, that's section O of the registration itself. Obviously, it goes through that a little bit more at the bottom of page 86 and over onto 87. DocuSign registration, obviously. Again, it stipulates there down the bottom, if they are registered to bid, they are not obligated to bid, guys. And that's why we just want to get as many people as we possibly can to register for the day itself. Now, the agent preparation on the day of the auction, we just need to make sure that you are there. If it is a local property, you need to make sure, if you are in LA, Orange County, or San Diego, and it is your home, the obligation is that you take 1 day out of your schedule and you are there for that auction. That is the obligation that you take on. Okay. Now, as far as the auction day purpose, okay, the purpose of auction day and how that negotiation works, guys, is that auction day is about getting people to make decisions in a crunch time. So a buyer does not have the time to rethink their decision. They get to the highest standpoint with the emotion of the transaction and they get to that sale, okay? Then once they are at that point, we can then get the sellers to try and meet them there, okay? And getting the sellers to make decisions there and then as well is important. You don't want to give people a lot of time to think about this because they will continue to talk them their way out of it. All of the work needs to happen before auction day. There shouldn't be anything that needs to happen on auction day itself from perspective of getting your clients ready to accept the marketplace, because this has already happened here. They should already be at that $920,000 range if that's where the buyers are stipulating or standing, so that therefore it's a very simple and quick transition of yes. The auction of each individual property only typically takes 10 minutes if there is lots of bidding on it. If there is no bidding on the property, okay, or we don't have registered interest, we still take the property to auction. Now, we may choose to announce that it's being postponed for anybody that's watching online. That's one of the obligations we have now of live streaming all of our auctions, and anyone from anywhere being able to see it. We need to make the announcement. So for example, if your property doesn't have any registered bidders on the property, or there's no offers that are accepted prior to, we may choose to feature the property for the next auction event, or we may choose to announce that it's been postponed and we need a little bit more time on the marketplace. The other thing also, guys, why would we allow bidding on a property if we know that it's not going to get to the point where the sellers want? To better educate the sellers, folks. The other thing of why we take every auction in every property to auction is, first, we want to make sure that it doesn't become a gimmick. Okay, people need to know that we are going to do a live auction on the property. Second of all, is that there's nothing more educational if we don't have any other registered bidders and a seller can see other properties getting bids, but no one even wants to bid at their property, even at the bidding to start from price. That's very educational. We can use that. That's why it's important to get the sellers to the room most of the time if they are local, is to get them to the room, okay, so that they can see it. Or if you're not local, do a watch party in your office. A lot of our offices do that, is that they'll do a watch party where they'll put the application up on the TV and get the sellers to come along, get them to watch the other properties, get them to see the success that we have. Because even if the property sells prior to auction, we still bring the hammer down and we do promote that as well for the day. Okay, so either way, the purpose of what auction day is about getting the deal done and bringing everything to a crescendo that decisions need to be made by. Okay, it's amazing the flurry of interest, and what it does is having that set date on the property and the set timeline on the property for our added interest. Okay, excuse me. Okay, so going back to the work booklet, guys, is that if the bidding is paused, okay, so say we have 11 properties up tomorrow, the first property itself, we get bidding on that property, it gets to a certain amount, we will always pause the auction, okay, regardless of whether it's over the non-disclosed reserve price or if it's under the non-disclosed reserve price. We are going to pause the auction, always going to pause the auction, and we are going to try and get more money out of the highest bidder, because even if it's over the reserve price, our job is to get the highest price the market will pay. But if it's under, we're going to take some time in order to try and get them up, and also get the sellers down in order to meet in the middle somewhere along that way. But again, as I said, the work should have been done prior to that. Okay, now in that pausing moment, I may choose as the auctioneer to keep going, but we will always come back to the property to update if there's been an increased offer. The purpose of the auction process is to create that transparency. So say the bidding on a property stops at $1 million, okay, we pause the auction, Jason or Jonathan is out talking to the sellers and the buyers putting a deal together, myself as the auctioneer keeps going, we go to lot number 2 and we keep doing it that way. And then if there's been an increase in that negotiation to 1.1 million, they'll come back and I'll update everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, the increase in offer, it stopped at $1 million. Sir, you've increased your bid to $1.1 million. Can I confirm that? $1.1 million it is. Ladies and gentlemen, in the clear and transparent arena of auction, you always get a second chance to make sure that you are not going to regret the decision of not moving forward. So the bid is at $1.1 million. Would you like to bid any further? First, second, third time. Guys, the auction room works in a sense that I have 3 calls, okay, to make. Every time that someone places a bid on the property, I have 3 calls that I can do. Okay, when I get to the third and final call, that then is an opportunity for me to make a decision on the seller's behalf, because I'm representing the sellers, is that I'll either choose to pause the auction and continue negotiations, hold the property over and decide that we're so far away that it's not going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to simply push that over to private negotiations. It's not going to happen here today. The property will either be re-auctioned, we'll either get to a point that we can accept, okay, or it may go traditional, okay? Then also the other thing that I have the opportunity to do is place 2 seller bids on a property that are under the non-disclosed reserve price. I can do so twice. They have to be disclosed as seller's bids, but it moves the property forward in a direction that it needs to be. Think about it as a public counteroffer, that you need to be over that price if you wanted to continue to be interested. So people often say, how do you have an auction with one bidder? Is say the bid is at $1 million and no one else is bidding, but we need to get to say 1.5. I'll simply go, well, ladies and gentlemen, based on the interest that we've had leading up to the auction, your bid is at $1 million. I'm going to place one of two of my sellers bid at $1.2 million. Okay, that is a seller's bid. Simply means that you need to be above that if you want to continue bidding on this property and have a chance of purchasing the home. The bid is at $1.2 million, your chance to bid higher if you want. So it just moves it in the progression that it needs to in a transparent format, that live negotiation, and that negotiation that we can bridge a deal together then and there, rather than counter offers and 24 hours or 2-day renewals where it takes forever to bring a deal together where everyone can talk their way out of it. Okay? So, moving down even further is selling the property under the hammer. Say that we get to a point where the buyer says, I'll pay this, and the seller says, I'll accept this, then that's called selling the property under the hammer. I would go back out to the floor and to the live audience and to the streaming audience and stipulate, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to an agreement at $1.3 million, and my instructions are perfectly clear based on the auction documentation, is that if there is no more bids over $1.3 million and I get to the end of my third and final call and I bring the hammer down, is that the property will be sold pending signings of contract to this person right here, or the online bidder number 1, 2, 3, whatever. Okay, is that, so I'll go 1.3 first, second, third time. If no one else bids, then we sell the property. But that's called giving everybody a fair and equal chance on auction day itself. Okay, moving through with the contract signing, guys, the residential purchase agreement that you would normally sign off on, okay, the contingency removal form. Obviously, the contingency removal form would be per their bidding registration. If they have asked for contingencies, then they wouldn't be needing that, okay. We need to obviously have the variation of terms there as well that we can obviously stipulate. We also have a supplemental addendum, which is a Harcourt's auction contract. It's your contract, okay, then there's the supplemental addendum to that, obviously, the contingency removal, if that is valid, or it's the variation of terms form to stipulate there those terms. So guys, they've not only signed all of those contracts, they've also signed the bidding registration. It is very, very, very difficult for them to remove themselves from that contract, because obviously the reality is they've signed so many different documents that say the same things that they cannot plead negligent, okay? So the deposit, as I've already stipulated, is they can either hand over cashier's check. We've either made the arrangements or allowed them to transfer it to escrow within 24 hours, or if we haven't trusted them 100%, that money is already in escrow at that point in time. Okay, and that money then goes hard automatically upon the signatures, upon the fall of the hammer. Okay. So the property doesn't sell and it is held over, guys. That's where we all have to make a decision, which leads us now to the next part, which is post-auction. Okay, I'm just going to quickly bring up on the screen the chat just to see if there were any questions. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, who gets the deposit in the event of a cancellation? Sellers, guys. Yeah, the sellers do. I'd obviously be organising with them that if they were to take the entire deposit in the event of a cancellation, that you might get some of that money for the expenses that you've incurred for the listing if they're not going to continue to relist it. Okay, but either way, the sellers do get that if in the event that they that something did cancel. Okay. Any other questions at all, guys, on that? I know that I've done that relatively quickly, but the reason why we don't spend a lot of time on auction day is because that is our domain. That is our arena. You guys just need to get the property to auction day itself, get the registered interest and get those bidders, gather the bidders, and then we take care of everything from that standpoint moving forward. Okay? Then we need to make some collective decisions, guys. Let's talk about where we're going to go to from here. Okay, if the property does not sell before or on the day of auction, okay, well, let's talk about post-auction. All right, so post-auction, folks, all right, this is where we all need to make some collective decisions here. The book, we're getting to the pointy end of the book, obviously, but it gives you a little bit of process. It gives you an email template that you can email out to people post-auction to let them know of the result or what's happening. Okay, the next step, okay, is putting the property on hold. So guys, one of the things that we would recommend is that if the sellers don't know which way they're going to go just yet, put the property on hold. And I want to bring up the auction listing kit here as well, because this does give us the opportunities for the post-auction situation as well. Is that, let's have a look. We can either postpone the auction, we can convert it to traditional, or we can take the property off the marketplace, okay, or the seller can, or we continue negotiating with those contingent offers that we received prior to auction. Maybe the offers that we didn't allow them to bid, or they didn't want to bid, or whatever it may be, we can then go back and deal with those. The auction process is designed to deal with the premium buyers first, then we can deal with all due respect, or lack of better terminology, is the crap afterwards. Okay, we're trying to use the filtration process to purify the buyers through the auction. We can deal with the gritty stuff later. Okay? But the other thing that we all need to make a collective decision of, guys, and you often think that this is the seller's decision on what way they would like to go. Yes, if they want to take it off the market, absolutely. But going traditional or postponing the auction is actually your decision that you need to make. And that's a decision that we would love to be involved in with you. Because if we're going to turn the property traditional, it means that it's worked. We're going to put a really sexy list price on the property. It's going to likely sell within 10 to 12 days after auction. It's gone. But if the seller is still maybe of a mindset that they aren't going to reduce their expectations, my recommendation would be to put it back through the filtration process of the auction. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, is that this is your decision, because the only person that looks silly in the situation where you overprice a property back onto the marketplace, that's your time. The other thing that we need to take into consideration as well, maybe the seller is starting to blame the auction process. Maybe they're saying, oh, it's because of the auction we're not getting enough money. So what we probably need to do in that situation, and what we would advise you on as the auction team, is we would advise you to go down the path of telling the seller, is that Mr. and Ms. Seller, we'd be happy to do that and put it back out at a price that you're comfortable with, no problems. But I would feel uncomfortable if we did that for longer than 2 weeks, because that would start to really taint the reputation of your property. So what my recommendation would be is that if we go out to the market at 2 weeks and we put the price that you're comfortable on, that we bring the property back to auction. And the reason I say that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is because we only sell 1% of all of our properties for more money after auction than what we're able to get before on the day of auction. So that is a purified case of the process being the premium process to get you the money. But if you need clarification and peace of mind that you've tried everything, why don't we put it back out at your price on the traditional marketplace, on that list price, and then we can come back to auction if we don't receive the result you're looking for. Guys, you've got to be proactive with this stuff. You've got to make sure that you take them on a journey of a process of elimination. I've taken you on that journey over the last 2 days of making sure that you go through the domino effect of things. That works not only in the listing presentation, it also works with the process itself. It also works when you're providing feedback back to the sellers, is that you need to go through that process of elimination with them. Why do we do the top-down approach in the weekly report? Why do we get the highest volume of eyeballs that get on the property, which is the online interest? We provide that in to say there were 6,000 buyers that looked at your property, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, so that there's never any questions that, oh, the marketplace isn't looking at it. Because, guys, the marketplace is always looking at the property. It just depends on whether the market's rejecting it based on price, or whether it's rejecting it based on property, which that means the price needs to be fixed in order for the property to shine a little bit more. Guys, there's always a different theory. But again, if we have scenario number 2 and we don't sell it before on the day of auction, and we're really confident with the list price that they're going to put on this property, put it traditional. Why not? Okay? Or take it back to auction if you wanted to, because now knowing that they'll accept what turns up. But again, if the process hasn't educated them enough, or maybe you haven't done it correctly enough, is that you get a second shot at this. Most of the time a seller is comfortable with a postponement, guys, because it's not doing any real harm to their expectations. You've just got to work on it a lot further. So again, getting back to the 3 outcomes, we either postpone the auction, we convert to traditional, take the property off the marketplace, okay, or give it back, okay, or deal further with the negotiations with some of the leftover people that are there that might have a little bit more grittiness to their offer, okay? The other thing that I want to really make sure that you understand as well, guys, as I just share this with you, okay, is in the pricing of a property, having us involved in the pricing of the property, if it is going to go back to the traditional marketplace, is really important because we can go from a standpoint. One of the things that really frustrates me if we were ever going to put a property traditionally, and that's on page 96, is the script that I'm about to use in order to price a property, is I absolutely hate it when people say, well, we need to price it here to leave room for negotiation. Guys, you're supposed to be a professional negotiator. Why do you need room for negotiation? The other thing also, what that does is that it inflates the value of the property, which then doesn't look like good value for money, which then then you don't get the full appeal of the marketplace to the property. So if the seller wanted, let's say the seller was in a position where they would take $920,000. I'd ask them to price it at $919,000, and they're going to say, well, no, we need room for negotiation. I say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, one of the things that we do with this process, and one of the things that we're comfortable with our professionalism and our negotiation skills, is that we don't need the room for negotiation. We find that overinflating your expectation only leads to less people through the front door and less of a result for you. I would prefer to put $919,000 on the property as your list price and stipulate in the remarks in the MLS that the price has already been negotiated. We will not accept a dime less. Okay, at least that's very clear. Now, yes, we're going to get people that try and stretch that theory and put in an offer of 910, but at least we get them to put that offer in. Okay, I'm good with that. But we just need to be very clear with people that then it's a very easy negotiation strategy. Guys, didn't you read the remarks or didn't you understand what I said to you? At 910, I'm not going to do a deal. The seller won't counter you. We've already made the instructions really clear. It's $919,000 or nothing. Now, guys, that being said, we all know that at 910, if it's a $919,000 is what the seller wants, or 920, you can bridge that gap and you can put that deal together. That's pretty straightforward, okay? But this just allows, again, another layer of bringing your seller down rather than them inflating their expectations. They are in constant negotiation with you at all times, folks, okay? They are in constant negotiation with you at all times. So going back, the script just here at the bottom of page 96 is that script, and we would be happy in order to offer that to you, okay? Re-auctioning the property we've already been through. But the other thing that I don't want you to neglect, guys, the other thing I don't want you to neglect in any way, shape or form, okay, is the factor of communicating to the neighborhood. Remember, who are your future sellers in this situation, folks? The people around it. And if the property doesn't have a sold sign on it after the auction date, go and communicate with them about what's going to happen, okay? Like, you can say, we're going to postpone the auction. We are going traditional after finding what the marketplace is value the property at, okay? You can tell them of the result, okay? You can tell them we're negotiating with further parties. We had this many people through. Again, that script is there. You can give them a summary in that script. Mr. and Mrs. Seller or Mr. and Mrs. Neighbor, okay? Just wanted to let you know, 42 Smith Street, we had just over 60 people through that property in 4 weeks, which is well above the average for the local marketplace. But we were able to use all of that feedback in order to educate the client around where the property sits for value. So they're going to price it really accurately now, and we typically see a result inside 10 days after auction. So again, this has really given us an opportunity not to chase the market down, but to price it accurately. So we're really encouraged by the result. Okay, put that positive spin to the equation. Or you could say to them, they're taking it off the marketplace. That just shows you the level of control that the seller has with our non-distressed auction, is they've just chosen that there's too big a discrepancy between what they need to move on versus what the market's willing to pay. And we were able to find that out in 4 weeks versus 6 months. So we're really encouraged with the result, and they're happy as well. Okay? So guys, that is the ultimate thing with the post-auction situation, is that we all need to weigh up the situation at the period of time, okay? If we don't have any registered bidders for auction, then we would make that determination before the auction occurs, how we're going to handle that from a perspective of postponing it, okay, going traditional, renegotiating with some of those buyers, whatever it may be. The auction team will be in touch with you all the way through the process. We are hand in hand with you the entire way. The final thing that I want to mention, guys, is a statement, and I'll send you out of here very shortly, is that statement at the bottom of your booklet on page 97, which sort of rounds out the entire accreditation today. Now, guys, sometimes you are left wondering why auction, okay? You are also left wondering why auction from a perspective that if this happens, or why did I do that in the first place, or I don't think that worked. Guys, there has never been a property that it hasn't worked for. It's just your individual mindset that it goes through. So you believe that a failed auction is not having registered bidders or it's selling prior to auction. Hopefully today and yesterday, I've given you a perspective of the fact that no, it is a process. It is not the result. Don't as soon as you list an auction, guys, as soon as you list any property, okay, for whatever way, check your ego, folks, because this isn't about you. It is about the result of your client, okay, and doing the right thing by them. And the right thing by them is ensuring that they have a clear vision to the marketplace when it turns up, rather than this clouded perception of the marketplace. So you're often sometimes wondering, well, why did I do auction? I don't think it worked. The thing that I put to everybody, if you've been doing real estate for a little while, okay, and you don't sell a traditional property, okay, say you do a traditional sale and that doesn't sell, why is it that you don't turn around and blame the traditional process automatically? And then when you list your next property, you do traditional again. So why is it that you would blame the auction process before you would blame the sellers, blame the situation, blame you, or look in the mirror? And why is it when you list your next property, it's not auction? You did the same thing traditionally. My thing when it comes to auction is consistency and building a cadence with it. Okay? Guys, we have a fee structure that we've put in place, much to the demise of our business financially, is that we need to do multiple transactions with you a year in order for it to become a profitable relationship with us. If we didn't care what the outcome was for you, or we didn't believe in our process, we would charge buyer premiums at 10 and 12 and 15% on the sale, because then I'd only need to do one transaction with you, and then that is absolutely it. Guys, we have built this model for you to continue to use, continue to add as an department in your business. Now, not everyone's going to like it, but ultimately, regardless of whether you like it or not, if you choose not to offer it to your clients, you are not fulfilling your professional obligation as a true real estate professional. Because, guys, there's nobody that can prove to me that this isn't the superior way to sell real estate. Folks, that concludes our accreditation. The process moving forward, by the end of business tomorrow, or close of business tomorrow, Callista will send out an email to all of you that are here today and that we've gone through and verified that you've attended most of all of the sessions, okay, with your name and office location that you've put into it. She'll send you out a quick little quiz of 24 to 30 questions. It isn't a pass or fail. It just gives us an understanding of how you've retained the information. And on the questions that you get wrong, you'll just have John or Jason reach out to you and just have a conversation with you about that topic. So to just further enforce whether or not you did understand that individual portion of it. Because auction is a weapon of mass destruction in the wrong hands, folks. It is a wonderful tool, but if you ever see a BMW or a Mercedes-Benz crash into a power pole down the road, is it a bad car or a bad driver? It comes back down to the person driving it, and we're conscious of not only being in the car with you to help you steer, but also making sure that you understand what you need to do before hopping into the vehicle, okay? Which is auction. And again, I said, auction can be a weapon of mass destruction for a property if not used correctly. And we're very conscious of that, hence the reason we're so protective over the process. Guys, the second thing I will say in ending today is that taking 2 days out of your business is a very big commitment. Everybody that offers auction in Harcourts has taken the auction accreditation and gotten through it. I applaud the people like Michelle and Candy who have actually done this the second time. Folks, now that you've done it, you are able to come into the process, whether it be day 1, day 2, to refresh yourself anytime you want. Okay, some agents, we make it mandatory that if they screw the process up that bad, okay, we make them do the 2 days again, guys, because again, we're gambling with people's financial futures here. Okay, it is not something that should be a gamble. It should be a set process, folks. But again, we appreciate you taking the time and taking this seriously. If there are any questions at all, I would just advise you to reach out to Jason and John directly. Their information, again, is on the website that you guys can find. But it's been a great 2 days for me, and thank you for your participation online and your patience with a few of the technical difficulties. It's been a little bit weird in here the last 2 days. But either way, make sure you take into consideration that your work booklet, resource booklet, the auction website, the listing pack, you can buy those listing kits through the hub in the auction section under listing kits in the quick links, okay? Make sure you take advantage of getting one of those so that therefore you can pitch the process perfectly and you can show how it's a process that has been thought out from day one. Okay, it is not just something that we've created, and that it's not the wild wild west, and it's not just the cowboy process. It is a process that has taken an incredible volume of evolution. If you guys, to an extent, are the luckiest Harcourt's people at this point, because you haven't had to go through us evolving it to the point of what it is now. To know what it's going to be like in the next 12 to 18 to 2 years, you know, is probably going to be even better again. But guys, we'll keep evolving and developing it as long as you keep supporting it. So again, appreciate it, guys. Thank you for your attendance. Again, reach out to Jason or John if there's any further questions. Look out for that email. Go through the quiz. If you're uncertain of anything, just answer and know that the guys are going to reach out to you and further clarify that individual section. But again, appreciate it and look forward to seeing your first auction out there shortly.